Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where OP's sister demands they shave for her wedding. Am I the jerk for not wanting to shave for my sister's wedding? I'm female, 31. She's female, 29. My sister is getting married in July, and I'm her maid of honor. We're really close, but recently we've been arguing because she asked me to shave my legs and underarms for her wedding, and I don't want to. I stopped shaving those areas during lockdown out of laziness, but I found that I really enjoyed not shaving. My sensitive skin is happier, and I just enjoy not spending time, energy, and money on hair removal. If it matters, my body hair is light brown. My leg hair isn't very noticeable from a distance of a few feet. My underarm hair is a bit thicker, but unless I'm wearing something sleeveless, nobody will see it. And here's the thing. The dress I'm wearing for the wedding is floor length and it has short sleeves. My sister is concerned because the skirt has a slit and the sleeves are kind of fluttery. So there's a possibility that someone might see my body hair while I'm dancing or something. And my thoughts are, so what if they do? It won't be visible in photos and nobody's gonna care if they happen to catch a glimpse. Not the jerk. It's hair. It's not like we all don't have it. My family had 6 weeks notice of my wedding day and my two sisters were bridesmaids. My eldest out of the two decided to take hair clippers to her hair and off it came, 2 days before we gave everyone the date. She told me that she would understand if I decided not to have her as my bridesmaid due to her new hairstyle, and I said it didn't matter. If she was happy, then I was happy. Plus, she rocked it anyway. Not the jerk. It's your choice, and no is a full sentence. She accepts it and moves on. That would be my vote, whatever you were wearing. Yeah, people need to chill with these wedding demands. Body hair is normal. It won't affect the wedding. And it especially won't affect the wedding in a dress that makes it pretty much impossible to see. Not the jerk for sure. Not the jerk. It's ridiculous how many people think telling someone what to do with their body is okay. And for a wedding, no less. You're the jerk. This is why I can't stand Reddit. You people are so desperate to rally for a cause. Look, I'm a woman and I care about our issues just as much as anyone else does. But my opinion is that you just need to make this small sacrifice for your sister. I think you're the jerk. And I could ask any of the women I know and they would all say the exact same thing. The problem with Reddit is that most of the people here are disconnected from the real world and are always going to give you a warped perspective. I hope your sister disinvites you. Believe it or not, nobody at that wedding wants to see the afros you've got growing under your arms. Am I the jerk for leaving for the weekend after my wife agreed to host Easter at our house without consulting me? My wife, who's 38, and I, 39 male, have been married for 12 years and we have 3 kids who are 11, 8, and 6. We live reasonably close to family on both of our sides. Our house isn't huge by any means, but it's big enough for our family. However, no one else on my wife's side of the family lives in a house. Her siblings all either rent homes with roommates or they live in apartments. Her parents downsized into a smaller townhome about 5 years ago. As a result, anytime her family wants to get together for a holiday or a special occasion, we're the ones who end up hosting. It's not even a discussion with her family anymore. Everyone just assumes that we're going to be the ones to host. We at least rotate major holidays between my family and hers, but my siblings and parents can also host gatherings, so hosting duties are spread out among all of us. But every Thanksgiving, Christmas, 4th of July, Easter, etc., that we spend with her family, we host. And her family are not the best guests. They will bring food if we ask, but anytime there is cleanup or other help, they are nowhere to be found. I've expressed my dislike of this arrangement to my wife numerous times. She's insisted that I not say anything to her family about it and to let her handle it. However, nothing has ever changed. We hosted Christmas for her family this year and it sucked. People showed up late, forgot the food they were supposed to bring, no one helped with cleaning, people let their kids make messes, etc. Same old story as every other time. After that, I told my wife I was done. I told her I don't want to host her family until someone else on her family steps up and hosts something or we book some other venue and all chip in to pay for it. She promised to talk to her family about it and figure something out for the next holiday. For Easter this year, we were supposed to just have it be our family, no extended family. But a couple of weeks ago, my wife met up with her mom and sister for lunch. When she got home, she informed me that she talked to them about how hard hosting Christmas was. She said her mom and sister agreed that they would do better and offered to prove it to us on Easter, and my wife agreed. We got into a huge fight over it. I told my wife that she is on her own for this one. I told her that I would be spending the entirety of Easter weekend with my family, and I'll take any of the kids with me that want to go. But I'm not going to be helping with any of the hosting duties whatsoever. She thinks I'm overreacting and that I need to give her family this final chance because her mom and sister seemed really sincere during their talk. I told her I don't care what they say. I'm not going to be involved at all because I won't be able to hold my tongue this time, and I don't want it to come to that. She's not happy with me at all, but I don't really care. To top it off, all 3 of our kids want to come spend the weekend with me instead of staying home. Not the jerk. I don't think your wife is being firm enough with her family, and even if she's trying to negotiate some improvements out of them, it was out of line for her to agree to it without talking to you first. It sounds like she's taking you for granted. This might be her handling it, but it feels a bit too little and too late to expect you to host yet again just to give her family another chance, especially when she's committed without talking to you. And without knowing the family, I can't say I have a lot of faith any improvements they demonstrate this weekend will stick. The answer is that you guys should not have to solely face hosting duties. In fact, you should not be hosting at all unless you're both bought in. End of story. My boyfriend proposed, and now I don't want to marry him anymore. 2 days ago, my boyfriend proposed to me at a McDonald's near our house. He got on his knees in the middle of us eating and asked if I wanted to marry him with a silver ring. Some people were looking at me with happy faces, and others with looks of pity and disgust. This is how I felt in that moment. I didn't say anything. I literally just sobbed and nodded my head because I didn't want to embarrass him. The reason I'm mad over his way of proposal was because, 1, we don't talk about him proposing every day, but we probably talk about it twice a month, with him usually bringing it up. I told him I wanted my mom, dad, and my sister to be there if it was possible, and for it to be in a romantic setting. 2, I hate silver jewelry. I'm a gold girl, and he knows it. I told him I would never want a silver ring, and if he does buy me any jewelry, it's gold. I feel like if you're asking someone to spend their life with you, then it should be more thought out and planned. I don't think this is the type of person I want to marry, but I don't know. I've been trying to convince myself since yesterday that maybe I hyped up the proposal in my head too much, that whatever he did would not have topped it off. I think anything but that would have been better. Update. Just to answer a few questions I keep seeing. Why did I want a gold ring? I wanted a gold banded ring because I only own gold jewelry. I never said it had to be expensive. I literally would have been happy with a simple ring with a gold band. I was more mad at the fact that he knows how much I love gold and has bought gold jewelry for me before. We make jokes about how much I hate silver jewelry. How old are you guys? I'm 28 and he's 32. Do you not love him anymore? I love him the same amount still. We've been together for 7 years, and I don't think you can ever stop loving someone that quickly. If you loved him, you would accept any proposal. Well, if someone purposefully asks you what you want your proposal to be like, and then they don't make it anything near it, I wouldn't be mad if he did it at the park, the diner where we usually go out to eat with our family, etc. I wanted the place to have more meaning and to be more romantic. Also, for the people who think romance equals fancy, you guys are wrong. Now to the people wondering if I ever said anything about it. I did. We had a long conversation, and he said that he'd rather just get it done quick than pushing our whole lives to do it. It obviously hurt my feelings that he'd want to get something done quickly that has to do with him asking to be in my life forever. He apologized and then said he'd propose in a different way. I didn't really know what to say because it felt like I was asking him to propose instead of him wanting to do it. We're not broken up, but we are also not engaged. We are in a weird place right now because I feel like a proposal is a big thing and he messed it up by trying to rush it. Another thing is that he's literally my dream man. He takes me out to dinner every Friday, buys me things without me having to ask, and takes me out on trips spontaneously. This whole thing just threw me off all the way, which is where a lot of this anger and sadness is coming from. I didn't want this post to seem like I hated him. Sorry if that's what you thought. This sounds like a man who wants to break up but doesn't want to be the bad guy. I'm not joking or being sarcastic. Maybe it's just me, but it seems like he went out of his way to propose to you exactly how you didn't want. Like he spent time to think of and plan it so that it's exactly how you'd hate it. Is he trying to get you to break up with him? Because this is so wrong, it feels like he did it on purpose. Am I the jerk for telling my sister a house built on another woman's tears will never last? I, 24 female, found out a few weeks ago my long-term partner, male 24, had hooked up with my sister twice while I was pregnant. He has relentlessly claimed it was an accident. I don't understand how you can accidentally hook up with your fiance's sister and then date her whilst trying to mend our relationship for our kid, which I've been open to the fact I will allow him to be in our kid's life, but I will not be in his, as the bridges are burnt beyond repair. Anyway, my sister has tried to remain active in my pregnancy, but also my nephew, her son who's 11, I'll call him Kay. I have full custody of Kay due to her mental breakdown after her partner had died. He is aware of his real mom, but due to me raising him, he tends to call me mom. A couple days ago, it was my nephew's birthday. I invited my sister as I always do, as she is his biological parent, but also my ex, as he played an active role in Kay's life. He's been around from the day he was born and has a bond with him. He asked for him to be there too. My personal circumstances and relationships will not impact my nephew's relationships, as they are separate from mine. Anyway, not everyone at his party was aware of the current situation, as I've tried to keep it under wraps and private for Kay and my sanity. I don't want the stress of dealing with questions and other things. My sister broke down at his party. I removed Kay as quickly as I could, but she was screaming it wasn't fair for me to keep her son and her niece away from her. If I'm honest, I'm sick of being the villain in her life, and I snapped and calmly told her, "It wasn't fair for you to break up my home by hooking up with my partner and then dating him to create your own home. But I hope you know that a house built on another woman's tears will not stand. You'll lose him the same way you got him. He's your problem now." You could hear Kay scream and cry, claiming that she, my sister, isn't his mom to a family member who had taken him, and he since refused to see her. Most people were taken aback when I said what I said to my sister, as I told the majority that we ended the relationship amicably. But I'm no longer embarrassed or ashamed. I've had support from this, and people are standing by me and the kids. However, people have said I shouldn't have said it, and that I'm alienating Kay from his real mother, even though I've done everything in my power for them to retain a relationship. But I can no longer deal with her outbursts, and I need to put Kay's feelings first rather than hers, as well as my own family. My mother has threatened to call the social services if I do not allow Kay to see his mom, regardless of his feelings, and has called me a selfish brat who ruins and poisons whatever I touch, to which I have ceased contact after that final comment. I don't even know what is right or wrong anymore, but I'm trying my best with the cards given. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. What a whirlwind mess to be caught up in. Your sister sounds extremely troubled, to say the least. This entire situation seems volatile enough that you will want to involve lawyers to protect yourself. I could see this getting so much worse before it gets better. Good luck and best wishes to you. My best friend proposed to me, and I'm confused and mortified. Where can we go from here? Jordan and I met in university 2 years ago. We both started at the same time, and because of our ages, we were both considered mature students. So we quickly became firm friends as we shared a dorm, and we had joked around together about us being old enough to be considered mature in our early 20s. We weren't on the same course, but given we lived together, we would hang out pretty much all the time whenever we didn't have a lecture. We joined a bunch of societies together, went drinking every weekend together, etc. It was a pretty sweet gig because it meant we were at least never alone. Obviously, we made other friends, both alone and together, but we were always each other's number one at the end of the day. At the moment, we're on spring holidays for Easter, and while we haven't hung out constantly, we decided to make plans to visit each other's hometowns because we're from very starkly different places. Today, we went to mine. Mine is a big city central. This morning, we went there and were wandering down the streets, doing some sightseeing because he's never been there before. There's typically a lot of street sellers here, trying to sell you everything from hot dogs to fluffy Pokemon hats. I decided I wanted to get a caricature done. I've never had one, and I thought it would be funny to get it and hang it over my bed when we get back for term. I asked Jordan if he wanted to get in, and he refused. No worries, so I sat down and had it done. They don't take very long, about 5 to 10 minutes, so I sat there and looked straight forward at the artist the entire time. He finished the caricature, and I loved it, so obviously I turned to show it properly to Jordan. When I turned though, I literally don't even know what to say. He's down on one knee holding up a ring box. I don't even really know what he said, if he did the whole proposal speech thing, because I was so confused. I was barely paying attention. Remember again, this is a super busy tourist city, so this has drawn a mini crowd now, coming over to cheer us on. I couldn't help but burst into laughter. To be honest, I thought this was some kind of odd prank thing. We never have been prankster types or whatever, but I couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. So I just laughed and laughed and laughed until I looked at Jordan and he looked genuinely heartbroken. So obviously I asked him something along the lines of, "You're not being serious." This is the only thing I remember him saying. He shut the box, stood up, and shrugged and said, "I guess not anymore," and walked off. This left me standing pretty awkwardly, and this gathered crowd of people, a lot of people who gave me dirty looks, which made me incredibly uncomfortable. The plan was to meet back up at a hotel that we had booked rooms next door to one another, so I figured that's where he's going and I head back that way. But he's not there. So I wait and wait and he still doesn't return. I text him out of concern. This was 1:15 p.m. Just asking if he's okay. He responds with a long message back, which I won't post because it's an odd read, but I won't out of respect for his privacy, in which he basically accuses me of leading him on, asking why I didn't break up with him sooner, saying I had publicly humiliated him, and that he thought I loved him the same way, and that he felt our relationship was strong enough to consider taking the next step. Now this is completely out of left field. I literally have got no idea where in the world he got this idea from. The closest we've ever physically been is a hug, hello, and goodbye. I've never even jokingly flirted with them, for exactly this reason. I've had too many friendships collapse because they can't tell the difference between seriously interested and joking banter in friendships. So I've been extra careful to not do it. We've never kissed, never been on a date, never hooked up. I do not find him physically attractive, and I wouldn't want to be in a relationship with him. I don't understand where on earth he got this idea that we are. This isn't something he's ever brought up before this, and I'm genuinely bewildered. He hasn't returned to the hotel yet. I periodically knock to check, and I've been listening out for him walking up the hallway or anything. Nothing. I haven't responded to his long paragraph because honestly, I don't know how to. I'm just so stunned and taken aback that I genuinely have no idea where to go from here or what to do. I haven't told anyone I know in person yet, mostly because I don't want to bring this up to people who know Jordan. So here I am turning to strangers on Reddit instead. What in the world do I do? Has he ever been in a relationship before? Like actually had a girlfriend? Is he like the type of fundamentalist Christian who believes in no kissing before marriage or something? I don't know. My instinct would be to ask him to talk to you and have it out, pointing out all the ways in which you're not actually dating. Never asked each other out on a date specifically. No physical contact. Like, when does he remember this relationship becoming official? But then again, he's possibly off his rocker a bit if he's created this delusion in his head. I think you're going to have to walk away from this friendship. Can you reach out to any mutual friends and ask them their takes on this, if you trust them not to gossip? That's just straight up delusional behavior. He built up an entire relationship with you in his head and decided it warranted proposing to you in public. Never mind the fact that even for devoted couples, marriage should be discussed and agreed upon before anyone proposes to anyone. You need to tell him you're just friends, you've always been just friends, and you can't and don't see your relationship any other way. Frankly, I'd do it in a text, just in case he handles it poorly and decides to do something unpredictable from having his grandiose delusion shattered all at once. Yep, this has restraining order and carry a can of mace written all over it. Am I the jerk for leaving my girlfriend because she said she was going to stay at her former friend with benefits house? My girlfriend and I have been together for about a year now. Her former friend with benefits, let's call him M, has known her for about 5 years. Based on what my girlfriend told me, while she considers him a friend, they've never actually done anything more than meet up at a bar and hook up. Literally, they've never done anything else, but my girlfriend still considered him a friend. M actually lives about an hour away from our town, but we frequently go to that town because it's significantly bigger and more fun. We've run into M every now and then, and every time he hits on my girlfriend. The other day, my girlfriend went out with a friend. I didn't go because I had an early morning. Later, she calls me and says she won't make it back as she drank too much and her friend left with a guy. She runs into M and says M is going to let her stay the night. I told her this made me uncomfortable and offered to pay for a hotel, or if she's willing to wait, I'd come by and pick her up. She insisted on staying the night with M. I asked one last time to please let me come pick her up. She said it's fine. I told her, fine then, we're done, and hung up on her. She then called me again, texted me, left a voicemail. I ignored them. We don't live together, but the next day she came over and yelled at me. She insisted that nothing happened or was ever gonna happen, but I told her that I'm not gonna stress over it if something happens or not, So I just broke up with her. Even if something did happen, it's not my business. Not the jerk. Smart move. She messed around and found out. She's clearly not to be trusted if she claims to be in a relationship, but still regularly hangs out with a guy that she's hooked up with and still hits on her regularly. You literally did what every guy in your situation should always do. Offer options. If they aren't accepted and the wrong choice is made, you call it quits and walk away. No need letting her take up free space in your head for free. This guy is proud of you. Well done. I wouldn't have offered a hotel room. That's just an easy out for her too. She just would have hooked up with the guy there instead of at his house. We're identical twins, so you have to financially support my kid. Okay, so this isn't my story. This is my best friend Tommy. All names have been changed. Tommy and I became best friends in middle school. We bonded over the fact that we're both identical twins who have a horrible twin sibling. Tommy's brother Jack is a deadbeat who thinks everything should be handed to him. He also is a huge player and has a new girlfriend every few months. This eventually came back to get him when he got one of them pregnant. Now, Jack has no job and he lives with his parents who completely support him. But when they found out that he had got his girlfriend pregnant, they made it clear that he had to get a job if he wanted to stay there. His girlfriend, Abby, also has no job and has the same attitude as Jack. Neither of them wants to work and they both believe everyone else should be supporting them. Tommy has a good job and he makes good money, which absolutely upsets Jack. When they found out Abby was pregnant, they asked Tommy for a substantial amount of money. Tommy refused, which caused Jack to get mad again. This caused them to come up with an insane plan to get money out of Tommy. One day, they confronted Tommy and told him that if he didn't give them the money, they'd just say that he was the father and go after him for child support. They read a story online where a woman actually did end up getting child support from two identical twins because they couldn't figure out who was the father. From what Tommy told me, they had pretty smug looks on their faces when they told him. Here's a sum of how the conversation went. Now, I'm assuming this from what Tommy told me, so it definitely won't be word for word, but it pretty much went like this. They were at a party for one of Tommy and Jack's relatives when Jack and Abby came up to Tommy and said, Jack, "Sir, have you changed your mind about giving us the money?" Tommy, "No." Jack, "We figured you'd say that, so we have another plan." Tommy, "What plan?" Jack, "Well, since you won't give us the money, we thought of another idea." "What are you talking about?" Jack, "Abby read online about how a woman was able to get child support from two identical twin brothers because DNA-wise, they can't tell who the father was. So we're going to tell people you're the father, and since your DNA is the same as mine, any test will come out positive." Tommy was a little shocked when they first said this, not because he was worried, but because he'd realized his brother was even dumber than he thought he was. Tommy, "I know you smoke a lot, and who knows what else you do, but you seriously can't be this dumb." Jack, "I'm not dumb, I'm a genius. It worked before, look it up." Tommy, "Yeah, but you're forgetting a very important factor in all of this." "What's that?" "The whole having cancer as a teenager thing, the countless rounds of chemo, the multiple surgeries." "Nice try, but people can still have kids, look it up." This caused Tommy to start laughing. Jack, "Why are you laughing?" Tommy, "Because, you idiot. I had testicular cancer and had to have both of them removed. I have literally been sterile for over 13 years. "Well, they don't know about that." Tommy, "My medical history does. All I have to do is show them and the case will easily be thrown out." This made Jack and Abby mad and they started belittling Tommy, calling him every name in the book. For those worried about the baby, they eventually ended up putting the baby up for adoption. So yeah, as a few pointed out, the girlfriend's name changes in the middle. That's because I messed up and put the real name, so I had to fix it. My bad. My wife rejected my son's very thoughtful birthday gift, so I canceled her party. I, male 36, remarried after my late wife passed. I have a son who's 15. My current wife and I have been together for 2 years. She generally has a good relationship with my son, although they tend to have some disagreements from time to time. My son has background in arts that involves wood. He used to help his grandfather with his woodworking and learned how to make handmade wooden items and uses them as gifts. I planned a dinner party for my wife's birthday at a prestigious restaurant. The day before the party, she was cleaning my son's room and saw what he got her for her birthday, and that was a wooden tree with mine, hers, and his name on it. She talked with him and told him while she thought it was a sweet gift, she asked that he not bring it to the restaurant and give it to her there. Why? No idea. When my son told me this, I just had to call her out on it. She flat out said that she thought the gift looked ridiculous and she didn't want it to be seen in that prestigious restaurant or in front of her guests. I lost it on her, and I told her that she should be ashamed of herself for saying this when my son was being sincere and thoughtful. She swore she wasn't ashamed nor embarrassed by his work and even said she'll take the gift, but she simply didn't want it to be seen there. I told her not to worry about it since I decided to cancel the whole thing. She went off on me, calling me unreasonable for outright canceling her birthday over such a trivial thing. I refused to keep arguing, but she threw a fit about how I ruined her birthday and made her lose respect for me and my promises. My son kept the gift since she left the house 2 days ago, and her mom has been chewing me out for my decision and calling me a jerk for treating your daughter like this. It could be that it was not a big deal and I overreacted, but my son was feeling hurt by her request. Holy cow, not the jerk at all. Your wife doesn't sound like a very kind person at all, but incredibly shallow and cruel. This calls for a what the heck is wrong with her. If I had a stepkid for 2 years and this was the gift I got, I would be bawling. It would be the best present I ever got. You want me to be a part of your family tree after you lost your mom? The only way that gifting me that present would ruin my birthday dinner is because I'd cry the makeup off of my face into the filet mignon. Not the jerk. Thank you for having your son's back in all of this. That means more than you know. Cancel the whole marriage. Am I the jerk for wanting my wife to make my dinner? Me, male 25, and my wife of over a year, female 26. We've been together for over 4 years. We've always had a good relationship with each other. It has felt very love-filled. We recently got into an apartment, 1 bedroom, about 700 square feet, so it's not huge. Once this happened, I feel like things may have shifted. I work very long hours throughout the week, with sometimes only 1 or maybe 0 days off in the week, average of 75 to 80 hours a week. I bring home a majority of the money. My paychecks cover almost 80% of our whole income. Not that it affects how I think of her in our relationship. She's able to provide things like fun groceries, snacks, and sweets. And when we go out, she can pay for things like the tip or drinks, and I really appreciate that, and I tell her thank you when she can swing it. She also does most of the chores in the small apartment. Other than that, I'm the person paying for our life. Groceries, toiletries, outings, clothes, makeup, and not to mention rent and all other real bills. She works in a very different field and works 3, sometimes if her job requires, 4 days a week. She's working towards her career, and I'm proud of her on this. Most days, she'll work an average of 6, maybe 7 hours on her work days. This is where the problem has started. A lot of my work nights are late, 12 or 1 a.m. when I get home. I'll pack snacks, but I never get to eat. So a lot of days, I come home hungry for an actual meal. Recently, those nights have been more frequent, and I just don't want to have to cook something for myself after a 13-hour day after doing the same all week. I just want to be able to eat with the minimal amount of work when I get home. The other night, I came home around 1:30 a.m. and found my wife passed out on the couch with an empty personal pizza from Little Caesars. I got excited, thinking that I had a cold one in the fridge waiting for me. Wrong. Annoyed, but not upset, I microwave some Chef Boyardee, scarf it down, and call it a night. The next day, I have the same kind of night. Around 1:30, I get home. There she is, passed out, now with a bowl of macaroni and weenies, one of my favorites. And again, nothing in the fridge for me. Not understanding why she couldn't just make enough for the both of us and put my bowl in the fridge, I woke her up to ask. She gets a little snappy if someone wakes her up, but this time she was really angry, saying that she is not my maid and I'm being lazy trying to make her cook for me. I tell her I'm just hungry after a long day, and it upsets me to see that she cooked for herself and didn't think about me at all. I said she was being inconsiderate, and that really set her off, saying if I want a slave, then she's not it. I told her I don't want a slave. I want someone who seems to care about me. She looked at me with a shocked face and stormed out. Her mother texted, saying that she showed up at their house bawling and how I should be more considerate of her feelings. I haven't even responded because I just feel hurt and not cared for. I just wanted dinner. Am I the jerk? Edit. I really should have mentioned this is a conversation we have had before, and I feel ignored since she barely acknowledges when I brought it up. These last 2 times are after multiple conversations. Also, definitely didn't want to seem like she shouldn't be sleeping at 1. Passed out is just terminology I use. If I'm dead asleep at 4 a.m., I'm passed out. I appreciate the other things she does for me, like cleaning, but the other 8 hours of free time in her day, I wanted to be thought of since I would do the same for her, no questions asked. You're the jerk. Saying she doesn't care about you when she does all kinds of other things for you, chores, dates, etc., is very belittling. I'd be upset with you too. I feel like you could have asked way nicer. I also think you should maybe consider meal planning for yourself if 1 a.m. is not a good time for you to cook. You're the jerk. You can absolutely ask her to cook for you, but interrupting a necessary physical activity like sleep just to ask her why she didn't cook and then accuse her of being inconsiderate and not loving you? You picked the completely wrong way to handle this conversation. OP, learn to take a no. Your wife isn't required to take on making your dinner in addition to everything else she's already doing. You say you appreciate all the things your wife already does, but she is clearly not feeling appreciated if she feels like your slave. My vote stands. You're the jerk. Just because you work past midnight doesn't mean you get to throw a fit when you come home and don't see food. You shouldn't wake someone up in the middle of the night just to ask why was your meal not prepared, especially when there was no prior discussion on this. There's nothing wrong with wanting your partner to prepare some dinner you can eat after you return from work at 1:30 a.m. Just discuss it with her like adults beforehand. Waking her up in the middle of the night and throwing a tantrum is not the way to go. Entitled mom yells at me because I won't change the price of a toy. So this happened a while ago, but it still makes me fume every time I think about it. So I'm a supervisor at a supermarket. One day a cashier calls for me to come and help with something. I get over there and it's a mom and her kid. The mom claims the toy she has in her hands was only $9. Now, we're supposed to be strict about this kind of stuff because most of the time an item has just been moved to the wrong place. Just so we're clear, we can't honor a price every time something is in the wrong place. It's a huge store, and we would be run out of business doing that. Anyway, back to the story. I go with the customer to the toy section so she can show me where she found it. I see that the toy was clearly in the wrong spot, and all 3 other toys like this are an aisle away, and they're ringing up $20. I tell the customer this, and then a crap storm occurs. We've got me, we've got entitled mom, and we've got her kid. Entitled mom. Okay, but I found it here, and you guys say you honor the prices. Me. Not if the item has been moved to another place. If all the other toys like this were in the spot, there might be an exception. But if you read the label here, it says something different than the toy you're talking about. That's not my problem. I found it here. My son really wants it, and you are going to deny it to him? I used to work here. I know how things work, and you have to give it to me for that price. Me. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but there is too much of a difference for me to change the price of an item that was in the wrong spot. Her kid. At this point, he's not even caring about the toy. He's playing with a phone and seems perfectly content. Entitled mom. Are you kidding me? You're going to do that to my kid? He's so upset over this. He's throwing a fit. You tell him that you're the reason why he can't have a toy he wants so bad. Tell him. Her kid begins to get upset because she is baiting him. Me, trying to calm her down. Ma'am, entitled mom talking to her son. I'm sorry you can't have it. This woman over here won't let you have it. At this point, she's being so loud that my nearby coworkers have come over to see if everything is okay. I tell the customer I will get her a manager because I'm starting to get so angry that I'm shaking. The manager meets her up front where she continues to yell at him in front of all the cashiers and customers checking out. She's going on about how we are cheating her and that I handled the situation very poorly. Then she asks to speak to the store manager. When she is told that the store manager is unavailable, she calls our corporate number. Oh, and to make things worse, management let her have the toy. She was definitely one of the worst customers I've had to endure. Now, every time I see her, I shudder to think of having to help her again. By the way, it wasn't so bad after because all the cashiers were cracking up about the craziness of this lady, in turn making all the anger go away. And this mother met with the store manager, but everyone else vouched for me about how crazy this lady was, so I didn't get in any trouble. Do you think they should have lowered the price or kept it full price? Please let us know. That Karen needs to learn how to switch the price tags. Tell her to give me a call. I'll be glad to teach her. Am I the jerk for preventing my daughter from getting a new phone? Forgive me if I'm heated in this post, but this situation makes me extremely angry. A few months ago, my daughter smashed her iPhone for a social media post. In the post, she said, "It's okay, my parents will buy me a new one." The thing is, I definitely would have bought her a new one that same day and would have never known if it wasn't for the fact that her brother tipped me off and showed me the post. Her father and I were obviously extremely angry. We both came from rough childhoods and worked hard to build a good life for our kids. So to see her take advantage of that was extremely upsetting in a way I can't even describe. Her father and I are divorced, but we sat down and agreed that 1. We are cutting off her allowance, and her purchases now have to come through us. 2. We will never buy her a new phone, but we might consider a flip phone when she goes to college. 3. We will monitor her social media to make sure she's not participating in damaging content. 4. If she gets a job and wants a new phone, she first has to pay us back for the phone she destroyed. 5. We won't buy her a car when she turns 16. As I said, a few months have passed and I still feel the same way, but her dad has softened and he thinks her attitude has changed. He says that we might be too harsh over a teenager's mistake, and we should at least give her an allowance for chores and change "we're never buying you a phone ever" to "going a year without a phone." Personally, I don't care if all kids have one. She has an iPad with social media and a MacBook. She can still message her friends, but I refuse to get her another phone. If she wants one, she can get a part-time job and work for it so she can see how much work goes into getting a phone. But I don't see value in giving more money to a kid who doesn't know the value of money. I'd rather my daughter be unhappy for a few years over a phone than raise another spoiled and out-of-touch jerk for the world. Her dad respects my opinion and agreed he won't give her a phone or allowance. But now my daughter is angry at me and calling me a narcissist and controlling. However, my actions are a direct result of her misbehavior, and I'm not preventing her from getting a phone. She is free to work and buy one at any point. However, I think I might be the jerk because my daughter will be punished for years over one mistake. Am I the jerk here? Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you buy your kid a new phone or let them get a job and buy one themselves? Please let us know. Oh, give the kid a break. I did things like that all the time when I was a teenager, and look how I turned out. Fiancé left me due to my health condition. I left her destitute. We dated for 4 years and had what I thought was a great relationship. We were both well-established professionals who both owned homes in the same neighborhood and both with daughters in the home. Her daughter was 11 and mine was 16 when we met. We had actually planned to get married, build a house, and raise the two together. We planned the house build because she had recently been diagnosed with a neurological disease that would eventually put her in a wheelchair and need something ADA friendly. During the planning stages, I began doing landscape and construction projects on her home to increase the resale value. All in, I invested roughly $30,000 into the home, running everything through my side construction business for tax, permitting, and resale purposes. We had a contract that payment would be made upon the sale of the home. I produced invoices for each and every project, but never pushed for payment because of the prior agreement. Fast forward 6 months, we're looking at property to develop and finalizing drawings on the home when I began feeling ill. I couldn't eat, constantly vomiting and passing blood. I began noticing that my abdomen looked swollen, which was odd because we were both very clean eaters and were in the gym every day. So I went to the doctor and began having tests done. During this time, she began having small cognitive issues, and the stress of her current position was exacerbating her condition. So she took a $20,000 per annum cut in pay along with a lesser position inside the company. After a month or so of different tests and a biopsy, it came back that I had a golf ball-sized tumor in my stomach and would need to begin chemotherapy. So I began chemo and radiation treatments, which made me, expectedly so, extremely ill. She was spending time helping around my place on the weekends and staying over more, to the point that they were both at my home more than theirs. At this point, I suggested that we go ahead and put one of our houses on the market and move in together until the new house was built. I have great supplemental insurance as well as a long-term illness plan, so using that coupled with the sale of one of our houses would push us through comfortably and help ease the financial stress on her. Shortly after this discussion, she became extremely distant. Her daughter wasn't coming down and hanging out with mine anymore. She had excuses for not getting together. She quit driving me to treatments and stopped staying over. She then dropped a bomb, a sentence that will forever be burned into my psyche. I love you, but I can't see myself taking care of someone this sick in the long term, and I don't think we should see each other any longer. In a text. It broke me, I won't lie. This was the first woman I had ever opened up to and planned a life with since my wife died when my kids were 1 and 3. However, I tried to be mature about it. I forced myself to understand her position and to accept what I could not change. I calmly, the next day, gathered all of her things, packed them neatly, loaded them into my truck, and took them to her house to leave on the back porch while she was at work, in order to avoid any awkward exchanges. Walking around the back and under the porch cover, I sat down in a box and saw her in the back living room, on the couch, hooking up with a guy that she had introduced me to as a lifelong friend. I had dinner and drinks with this man and his girlfriend. We had gone on vacation with them as well. I never spoke on the incident with her and simply sent her a text later explaining that I would leave her things on my side porch to pick up at her convenience. I discovered 8 or 9 months later from his now ex-girlfriend that they had broken up due to him confessing that he had been hooking up with my significant other dating back to about the time we were finishing drawings on the new home. Now I'm mad. Revenge time. At this point, I had finished chemo and radiation for the time being and was feeling healthier. I was going through some much neglected paperwork when I ran across the file that contained $32,000 in unpaid, long overdue invoices, which were promptly sent to my attorney to begin lien proceedings on the home. It turns out that I couldn't have done this a moment too soon because she was set to put her house on the market. Coupled with interest over the course of what was then 19 months overdue, the invoices were hefty. That, along with the agreement of settling them when the house was sold and attorney fees, left her with roughly $10,000 after the sale of the home and settling her current mortgage. She promptly had to back out of the purchase of another home and moved in with her oldest daughter, sister-in-law, and 2 grandkids. She also had to leave her home and begin receiving disability. I ran into her a little over a year ago, and she looked as if she had aged 20 years and was in the wheelchair we had talked about. We chatted cordially, but briefly, and I excused myself and went on with my day. A few days later, her younger daughter called me and spoke of my running into her mom and could we hang out sometime. I gave her a vague answer, thanked her for calling, and again went on with my day. The ex then called me a week or so later and began apologizing for leaving me as she did. Again, cordial but short. I thanked her for calling and hung up. She began texting, and this went on for several weeks until she asked if I could ever see us rekindling what we had, to which I replied, I can't see myself taking care of someone so sick in the long term. Remember the box on your back porch? Did you think that lifelong friend brought that over to you from my house? Good luck to you. Goodbye. I sometimes feel guilt over this, but not much and not often. Am I the jerk for telling my boyfriend to get a job or get out? I, 27, have been with my boyfriend, who's also 27, for 8 years, and we've been living together for 6. For college graduation, my dad gifted me a house, paid off, as he is very well off. Since graduation, I've started my career and have become very successful and enjoy my work. My boyfriend has not. He did not complete college and has jumped between low-paying jobs for the last 6 to 7 years. This never bothered me. I make enough money to support us both. I pay our utilities and other fees with some help from him. Late last year, my boyfriend lost his job and was still looking for a new one when the lockdown hit. He now claims it is nearly impossible to get a job, which I understand, but have also had other friends in the same town manage to get jobs since the lockdown. All of this would be okay, except my dad lives in a city nearby and will often stop by, with warning. When he does, I do not mind him eating anything he wants out of the refrigerator or using my appliances. I figured he gave me a place to live payment-free, so it's only fair. I also do not care if my boyfriend eats whatever he wants either. Last week, my dad ate food that my boyfriend had purchased. This has happened in the past, but from my perspective, we live rent-free, so it shouldn't be a big deal. It is never special food, normally like regular chicken or something you can get at the market. My boyfriend is normally annoyed, but this time he went ballistic and took my dad's laptop charger out of his bag to get even. By the time my dad figured out his charger was missing, his computer was almost dead and he had an important virtual meeting. Thankfully, he had a spare, but I was livid. I told my boyfriend that he lives rent-free and that if he was going to act that insane about some food, when he regularly eats what I buy and turn into a child, then I expected him to get a job and pay rent, or else get out. He chose to get out, but accused me of being a jerk and throwing him out on the street. However, he has a brother and a sister that live nearby, as well as his mother, who regularly asks him to come stay with her, which he normally doesn't. So Reddit, am I the jerk? Well, what would you have done? Would you have kicked him out too, or let him stick around? Please let us know. It depends on the food. Are we talking Hot Pockets or Chipotle? Yes. Give us more money or we'll evict you. Go ahead. A few years ago, my best friend and I rented a tiny 2-bedroom flat together. This place was kind of terrible. My friend's room had a hole cut into the wall, so the last foot of the bed would fit. This became a mantelpiece in the next room. The kitchen was the size of a kid's playhouse kitchen, and the upstairs neighbors spent all hours of the day and night screaming at each other. But we were mostly happy because we were living with 6 other people. We paid £75 a week each, plus bills for this place, which was pretty standard for a 2-bed flat in our area. Then, 6 months into our 1-year contract, the landlord sold the terraced house our flat was a part of to a middle-aged married couple who were first-time landlords. They were the kind of people who thought that they were smarter than everybody else, and I got the impression that they thought property management was going to be the easiest thing ever. We had no problem throughout the sale process. We were assured nothing would change. We didn't interact much with the landlord before anyway. The 2 weeks after the sale, we got an email from the couple saying that we owed them £20 each more a week. Basically, in our contract, it stated our rent was £75 each a week, about 10 times, but there was one typo where it said our rent was £95 each, so they said that they could legally charge us £95. We laughed at this, but when it became clear they were serious, we reached out to the letting agent and got them to put in writing that it was a typo. Our rent was always £75, and they even gave us the original advert for the flat with the correct rent on it. We thought this would be the end of it. We were wrong. The couple insisted on coming to our flat for an in-person meeting. When they got there, they said that they asked the old landlord about it, and he was shocked that we had not been paying enough for 6 months now, and the rent was always £95. I didn't buy this because they had nothing in writing, but I made the argument that, of course, he would say that because he wouldn't want to seem like he sold under false pretenses. And if we had been underpaying by a total of like £160 a month, why had he never spoken to us about it? They said that he was a busy guy with too many properties. Then the husband spent ages condescendingly explaining mortgages to us. Then they declared that if we did not start paying them the higher rent, they would evict us, and we had 24 hours to pay or 30 days to get out, and they left. Honestly, I think they saw 2 22-year-old girls and thought they could scare us into paying more money. What they didn't know is that my friend and I are very pleasant until you upset us, and we become vindictive jerks. We decided that night that if they wanted to evict us, we were going to make them do it properly. And if they were so pedantic about contracts and rules, we were going to stop letting anything slide. The couple woke up the next morning with an email from our lawyer, my flatmate's brother, a bored lawyer with time on his hands, requesting a formal eviction notice in writing and laying out a record of last night's conversation. Thing was, they didn't actually have legal grounds to evict us because even if we went to court and a judge favored their interpretation of the contract, we were advised this was unlikely. We still didn't owe them more than a month's rent, which would have been their only legal way of evicting us because we were otherwise great tenants. By 9:15 a.m., they were ringing us, but we ignored them and emailed that our lawyer had advised us to only communicate in writing. We then sent an email informing them that the fancy new front door they had just installed could not be unlocked from the inside without a key, which violated fire safety laws, and unfortunately, if this wasn't rectified ASAP, we would have to report it. We then sent texts that showed them repeatedly entering our flat with less than 24 hours notice, and did they know that this was illegal? Maybe we should talk to the other tenants, because if they're doing this to everyone, then this could be quite a problem. After about 3 days of this, we received a very nice email saying they don't agree our rent was supposed to be $75 each a week, but they would graciously allow us to finish out our contract at this rate. By this point, we had found a flat triple the size for £80 each a week and wanted out of that hamster cage, so we offered to move if they signed mutual surrender forms. They eagerly agreed. The best part was that they stubbornly tried to rent that flat out at a higher rate, despite us telling them it was a terrible idea, and the flat was empty for over a year. And because they had agreed to end our contract early, they got stuck paying the council tax. Not me. A thank you to the man who defended me at Walmart. I'll start out by explaining briefly that we've just moved to the area we're living in. I'm extremely new to the area, and it makes me a little more nervous than normal. I am legally deaf. That doesn't mean I can't hear anything at all, but you definitely gotta speak slowly and very loud, especially with what's going on in these masks. I can lip read really well, but with the masks, I'm at a loss, unfortunately. I was wondering the local Walmart. I'm dressed in a bright yellow shirt and a pair of yoga pants, and I'm wearing my DOT-approved motorcycle helmet with the visor down instead of a mask. Masks are mandatory, but they never seem to mind letting me in as long as I keep my visor down while I shop. That makes me even more deaf than usual. My helmet is bright white, not hard to tell I don't work there. There is no mistaking that I don't work at Walmart. I have my hearing aids in, but they tend to have a wide V effect with 3 separate mics, and I don't hear people behind me very well, if at all. It just mutes background noise, so I can focus on what's in front of me. Even with the hearing aids, I have serious difficulty hearing people with my helmet on. I clearly have a few items in my hands, sandwich meats and bread. I'm following the arrows they put down, and I'm squatting down, looking for a can of Campbell's mushroom soup. Suddenly, there's a very aggressive, repeated smack against my shoulder. I actually screamed because I hadn't seen her come up behind me and was not expecting anyone right now to be close enough to actually touch me. She scared the absolute heck out of me. I twisted and landed hard, squishing my bread. I can suddenly see this woman, and she's wearing her mask, gesturing wildly. I can hear the murmur of her voice, but with the visor down and my helmet on, I can't understand her properly. My hearing aids are pressed against the sides of the padding of my helmet and are moderately useless with the visor down. She doesn't react that I've fallen, just gestures wildly, and her voice is rising. I finally make out what I think is, "How is the Mac fuel?" It's weird the way your brain fills in blanks when you can't hear someone or read their lips. I just shake my head and say, "I don't know." I know my response is muffled by my helmet because she keeps at it. While on the ground, I sign wildly, "I don't know, I don't know," all the while shrugging my shoulders and shaking my head hard. Unfortunately to her, maybe it looks like I'm saluting her, still on the ground. She says in an extremely loud voice, "If I can hear you and I'm wearing my helmet with the visor down, you're speaking extremely loudly." "Where is the cat food?" There is a man behind her wearing a mask who was distancing until she raised her voice. I see him approach quickly. He doesn't work there either, and I can hear him literally yell at her. Again, if I can hear you, you are loud. "Hey lady, don't touch her. What's wrong with you?" This attracts the attention of nearby people, and thankfully 2 people who actually work there. I see the blue shirts coming, and I just skirt back from the lady as she turns away from me and starts bickering with the man. I can't hear most of it, but I can definitely see it escalating. I stand up, step back further, and brush myself off. I pick up my sandwich meats, and the bread is a lost cause. One employee clearly tries to de-escalate the situation, and she is just shrill and gesturing madly. I can no longer hear the man. He's not raising his voice anymore. One of the staff, standing beside me now. I turn my face to her, and I think she's asking me if I'm okay. I shrug and throw off a few signs. "I'm deaf, sorry, don't know her." And I point aggressively at the lady who scared me. The man is explaining everything that happened to the other staff member. The second employee seems to understand that I'm deaf and just nods. She motions for me to step back further from the argument, and I do, and she puts herself between myself and the small knot of people. There's a brief heated discussion, the employee shaking his head, some of which I can hear, and some of which I can't, as the man speaks to the other staff. I can hear her briefly again, something about, "ever again." The lady is then actually escorted from the store, her cart left behind by one staff member. I was super surprised by that. When all is said and done, it seems he saw the whole thing. Things quiet down quickly. The customer who intervened points at me and flashes the "okay" symbol most people know. Pointer finger to thumb, 3 fingers out. I smiled and nodded. I signed and loudly said, "Thank you," before the Walmart employee led me back to the area to get new bread. I gave the man the peace sign before I left and signed "thank you" again before being led away. Am I the jerk for telling my wife I don't care if it's her turn? We're not naming our son Tuesday? My wife and I are both 28 and have been living together since we were 14. We got married at 21 and had our daughter at 25. Last year, we were going through some marriage difficulties and decided a break would be in both of our best interests. We both just need a little time apart after being together for so long. So we split, and in this time, my wife felt pretty awful about herself. I initiated the break and ended up hooking up with one of her longtime male friends, and she got pregnant. At 6 months pregnant, we reconnected again and got back together. Her friend had absolutely no interest in the baby and told us he would not play a role in the baby's life whatsoever. We agreed and planned to raise him together. Anyway, that's the backstory. It's been 2 months since then, and we've really been late on the names. I know. The deal was I named our daughter Charlotte. My wife didn't actually like the name, but she agreed so long as she got to name the next kid, and she can name our next. She came up to me yesterday and told me she was reading a book and found the perfect name. I asked her what, and she said Tuesday. When she first said it, I admittedly laughed out loud, and I asked her if she was serious. She said yes, she was, and it's her decision. I followed her around the house and told her absolutely no way were we naming our son Tuesday. He'd get made so much fun of. My wife said no he wouldn't. Lots of kids have unique names and aren't bullied. I told her that yes, unique names, not days of the week. She wasn't hearing it and pointed out she hated the name Charlotte and agreed on the basis she would get to name the next kid. I argued that's a totally different thing. Charlotte is a normal name. Our daughter won't get laughed at because of it. My wife got frustrated, and after arguing on and off for the rest of the day, she finally told me he wasn't even my kid. I just walked off, and although she came right back and apologized and said that she didn't mean it, I was fuming. I'm not talking to her right now, but I'm holding steadfast we won't name him Tuesday. I don't think I'm the jerk at all, but some ammunition would be helpful when I explain to my wife exactly why it's such a ridiculous name. So tell me, am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is Tuesday a good name for a baby or not? Please let us know. It's better than Monday, I'll tell you that much. God, I hate Mondays. The guy wanted that go-kart. This happened about 3 years ago. I worked at an underground go-karting area. I worked as a controller, so I sold tickets and controlled the races, meaning I stopped and started the races. It was one of the busiest Saturday nights. I'm rushing around with tickets and controlling races. My marshals are running around and trying to make sure the races run smoothly. This one family comes in and bought 2 tickets, the father and son wanting to race each other. When it came to their turn, the father says he wanted that card and pointed at the one in the island. The card in the island is black with some nice fire patterns on it. It really did look awesome, but here's the catch. It was just a prop with no engine. I told the father this, but he insisted on that card. I thought he was maybe a little hard of hearing, or it was too noisy for him, so I repeated myself. He called me a liar and called the marshal a liar. We went back and forth with this for about 10 minutes. The marshal pulled me aside and whispered into my ears, and the more he spoke, the more I smiled. We went back to the father and agreed on giving him the card. We asked if he wanted his wife to video record the race, and he agreed readily. I told them the basic rules and also told them that I will only stop the race if there is a real emergency. Just before the race started, my boss walked into the control room and I explained everything to him. He smiled and took a chair out for himself to watch the show. The lights turn green, the wife starts recording, the sun is off, and the father, well, the father was still where he is. He went off at us, yelling and telling us that we've cost him the race, etc., etc. We get him into another cart, but by the time his son has done 2 laps. After the race, the father demanded that he speaks to my manager, and to his luck, my boss is standing next to me. My boss's words, "You got what you asked for, so I suggest you leave or we call security." The father leaves, and his wife had tears in her eyes from laughter. The son apparently won $100. Remember, this happened in front of 200 plus customers. Edit. Wow, this story really blew up. A lot of you seem to think this is fake. I can assure you that this is a true story. The go-karts are built into an underground parking area, and on a very, very busy night, it can become very deafening. Am I the jerk for kicking out my pregnant sister because of her irresponsible boyfriend? I, 27 female, am a high school English teacher, and I live with my husband who works an office job. We live comfortably in a newer middle-class suburban area. 4 months ago, my sister, who's 18, called me asking to move in with me for a while. She told me she had gotten pregnant and my parents didn't want her living under their roof anymore. I was disappointed at her for getting knocked up in the middle of what's going on, but welcomed her to my house along with her boyfriend. When they moved in, I discussed the baby situation with her. She decided she doesn't want to go to college and that she'll find a job once the baby is born. As for the boyfriend, he's supposedly looking for any job he can take. I told her that they can stay with us as long as he finds a stable job, and she agreed. 2 months passed by and he hasn't picked up a job. My husband offered to go job hunting with him, but he insisted on doing it himself. What upsets me the most was that he never picked up after himself. He left dirty socks everywhere, dirty dishes on the table, wrappers, pop cans, any trash that he could have put in the garbage but decided not to. I asked him many times to clean up his messes. He told me he'll remember to do so next time. There was never a next time, and he continued to leave crap everywhere. It got to a point where I confronted my sister about her boyfriend's laziness, and she got mad at me for complaining about it. She said I was overreacting and that he was just stressed about having to find a job with a baby on the way. Frustrated, I told her that if he was going to act this way now, no way in heck was he going to be ready to take care of a baby, and if he didn't find a job by the end of the week, I'd be kicking him out. The argument ended, and she didn't speak to me for the rest of the night. The next morning, my sister approached me and said that if I was going to kick him out, I'd have to kick her out with him. I shrugged off the threat, but when the week ended, I told the boyfriend that he had to leave my house. Suddenly, my sister came running in the room and screamed at me for kicking him out when they're at a helpless state. I told her that he had his chance to find a job and he didn't take it. He didn't argue, surprisingly, and got up and left with his stuff. Next thing I know, my sister is packing her bags. "So, are you kicking me out with him?" She kept asking me this. Finally, I told her that it was completely her choice and I'd rather her leave if she was going to stay dependent on him. She left the house, and I don't know where she's at currently. I've tried contacting her countless times, but she won't answer. I've informed my parents about her moving out, and they couldn't be too worried. I also called up my town's local homeless shelter and asked them to tell me if she pops up sometime. For now, I'm sitting in guilt for letting her leave with her useless boyfriend. I don't want her to end up homeless with a baby. What would you do in this situation? Would you kick out the choosing beggars or let them stay with you? Please let us know. Refund your overdraft fees? You got it, bud. I used to be an operations manager for a top 20 bank in the States. I've moved on, but for a while the job entailed speaking with customers who were very difficult. So I get this call center rep who escalated the call to me and she's sobbing. This guy is beyond cruel. He has $140 in overdraft fees in 3 days rebated to him. He now has $70 more applied to the account today. This guy has been a customer a whopping 2 weeks, so no one's giving him any more money. Hence, he threatens to sue, so I get to talk to him. Now, I'm a sensible guy, and I'd like to believe a good person. Single mom, you're getting your fees back. Going through chemo, you're getting your fees back. Heck, if you're a broke college kid and you tell me that you just need the money back so you can eat, you're getting your money back. But this dude was a miserable piece of garbage and absolutely brutal in his insults. He gets on the line and doesn't even bother with any pleasantries. So right off the bat, he claims he's taking us to court. I try to explain how it happened, and he yells to me that he doesn't care. He's not listening to me and to give him his money. I explain we have already rebated 4 fees, and that's more exceptions than we normally give, and we would not rebate further fees. He cuts me off and then proceeds to call me horrible and terrible names, over $70. So I say I think we've gotten a bit off track and ask if I can hold to talk to my boss. This guy tells me to make it fast. He's getting on a plane soon. Cue malicious compliance. I pull the call record and email it to a legal and corporate secretary asking if this can be defined as a threat against an employee and grounds for shutting down an account. I know the contact in legal and asked him to look at it right away. He says to zero out the account and he'll shut it down. So I get back on the line and say, "Sir, thank you so much for holding. After speaking with my colleagues, the bank is willing to make a final exception and rebate the fees as a final courtesy, giving you a $0.00 available balance in your account." He hangs up. I email legal and they shut down his account immediately. No checking account, no debit, and no credit card. The guy got off a plane in Chicago expecting to put cash in his account at an ATM and seeing a direct deposit from his job, and found out he didn't even have a bank anymore. And even better, I got to read a follow-up comment from a CSR that said he called back in and this was a business flight. His company didn't give him a credit card. He submitted daily expense reports and they reimbursed him. So he was truly stranded. Karen demands my historical artifact. So here is a bit of backstory for you. So my parents and I have always been history fanatics and will always be. I had half a shelf in my bedroom designated specifically for World War books. My dad and I did this thing where we went to pawn shops and antique stores on weekends just to look around. This only took place a week ago when my dad and I went to an antique/pawn shop for the first time since lockdown started. Cast. We've got me, a 14-year-old with problems. We've got entitled mom, she who must not be named. We've got entitled kid, the little brat. We've got the random helpful person. Okay, on to the story. So while in this store, I make a find of a lifetime. A World War I, South African, my country of inhabitants helmet with all the netting inside. and it cost less than the book I bought a week before. It cost R$500 for those South Africans out there. I brought it to my dad immediately, and we bought it along with a few other things. Now, my dad needed to do a few other things in the mini mall we were in, but I didn't want to join him, so I went and waited in a store we frequent regularly and browsed while I waited. Now, here's where the horror begins. As I was sitting on one of the chairs they have around the store, casually reading a book I had brought with me, when Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid approach. Now, clearly, Entitled Mom and Entitled Kid were in the antique store at the time we were there, and this is how the conversation played out. Entitled Mom: "Oh, hey, you were at the antique store just now, weren't you?" Me: "Yeah, I just wanted to be left alone." "We were looking at an old army helmet for Entitled Kid to play with, but we came back 5 minutes later and it was gone. Do you know anything about who bought it?" Now, this immediately annoyed me. This helmet that she was talking about was clearly the one wrapped in bubble in the bag next to me. That helmet is over 100 years old, and you're going to let a kid play with it? The interneting will break within a day. Also, why would you want to know who bought it? Well, I was about to find out. Me: "Yeah, I bought that helmet, and it really should never be played with. Entitled Mom cut me off." "Oh, fantastic. So you can just give it to me then." Me: "Excuse me?" "Yeah, you can just give it to me. There's really nothing you're going to do with it anyway, and you're far too old to be playing with things like that." Now, I must admit that with how long my hair has gotten, the fact that I wear glasses, and the fact that I have stress permanently etched on my face, I have been told that I look about 2 years older. But this is a World War I helmet. If anything, I'm extremely young to be owning such a treasure. Me: "Ma'am, I don't think you understand. This is a historical artifact, not something to be played with." Entitled Mom: "But what else are you going to do with it?" In hindsight, my next remark may have, in her eyes, strengthened her argument. What I should have said was, display it in an appropriate manner. But I didn't, so here goes. Me: "That doesn't concern you." Entitled Kid: "Mommy, I want it." Entitled Mom: "And I will get it for you." Me: "No, you won't. I swear." The look of manic, entitled rage she gave me would scar the faint-hearted for life. "How dare you tell me what I will and won't do? You will give that to Entitled Kid so they can play with it, and you will do it now." At this point, I had picked up the helmet and was prepared to go see where my dad was, just to get away from this psycho. Then Entitled Mom attacked. They leapt at me, just missing the helmet as I twisted my body, holding her off while she screamed at me. At this point, random helpful person decided to step in. I have no idea if he worked there, as you often see the employees there wearing casual clothes, but he sure didn't act like an employee. Random person: "What the heck do you think you're doing to him?" "This boy is trying to steal my kid's hat I just bought him. He's a thief and a liar." Random person: "Shut up. I heard the whole thing. I was standing in the aisle behind you." Entitled Mom suddenly started looking nervous that this person was against them. Random person: "I hate people like you. Entitled jerks without brain cells. You never change." Entitled Mom: "How dare you swear in front of my kid?" "You didn't seem to have a problem with it when you were the one swearing at this guy." Entitled Mom suddenly looked like she was going to blow, but didn't. Instead, she grabbed Entitled Kid's arm, yanked him towards her, and walked out. Random person, now to me: "I'm sorry about that. I'll speak to people here and get them banned." Moral: history is important. Speaking of history, do you like history or not really? Please let us know. I love learning about queens, especially since I'm one myself. Am I the jerk for not wanting to be in my son's life anymore? My ex-wife and I got divorced 2 years ago and have a son who's 5 together. Our kid has a dark complexion and brown eyes, even though my wife and I are both very pale and have blue eyes. It was a bit surprising for me, but I never really gave the idea that this kid was not my own any serious consideration. Flash forward to 3 years after he is born, and my wife and I get divorced. Our divorce was unpleasant, but all things considered, not nearly as bad as it could have been. There was no infidelity or any irredeemable mistake by either party, just 2 people who no longer wanted to be together. We share custody, but my son lives primarily with my ex-wife and her boyfriend. As the boy has gotten older, his features have almost entirely diverged from mine, and he now looks absolutely nothing like me. Again, I thought nothing of it, as I trusted my ex-wife. But a couple of weekends ago, when I was visiting him, I made a joke to my ex-wife that people will think he's not mine. She then bursts into tears and admits that he is most likely not mine. I am absolutely stunned and didn't interrupt her once as she spilled an entire saga of her cheating on me with her current boyfriend around the time we were trying to get pregnant. I thought I was going to throw up when I heard and immediately left her home. I don't know if I can ever go back or ever see my son again. I feel deeply betrayed by my ex-wife. My ex-wife insists that I remain a part of this family despite all of the deceit. She has called me a deadbeat for leaving after she told me the truth and not sticking around to raise my son. She claims that even after all she's done to me, I am the jerk. I know none of this is my son's fault, and I still care a great deal about his well-being, but I just don't think I can be a father to a kid that's not my own, especially when his actual father is fully in his life. I feel like an unnecessary appendage in this relationship, and I refuse to be humiliated any further. Am I the jerk for refusing to raise a son that is not my own? Clarifying point. I plan on doing an official DNA test before I make any lasting decisions, but I don't feel ready to have the conversation with my ex-wife yet. She seems convinced her boyfriend is the father, not me. For now, I'm keeping my distance. As much as I might despise them, the kid is perfectly safe with my ex-wife and her boyfriend. They both love him deeply, and this would be a very different conversation if that were not the case. Edit. A lot of people are talking about child support being the real issue here. I'm not particularly worried about this at the moment. That discussion will come, but both my wife and I have well-paying jobs, and the kid's future will be secure financially regardless of the outcome. Who do you think is in the right? OP or his ex-wife? Please let us know. Customers' loophole against takeout-only policy doesn't work. Weird one recently. We were still 95% takeout and delivery only because we can't really accommodate outdoor dining at scale. When this happened, my job was pretty much entirely processing takeout orders and handing bags to delivery guys, besides the occasional, "Oh hey, we're still closed, but we have takeout and delivery options" conversation. Up to this point, people had been really understanding about it. We did have some regulars though, who were clearly getting impatient and came back every couple days even when we told them, "You'll know you can eat inside the same time we know, as soon as the governor makes an announcement about it." They seemed slightly annoyed with us for not flouting the public health mandates for their convenience. We always offered them one of the 2 tables we've crowded onto the sidewalk to try and make some money from outdoor dining, but unsurprisingly, no one ever wants to sit there. So that day I was taking orders, chilling. It was pretty slow, winding down between meals. An older couple, a couple men, come in and started pulling one of our tables in from the street. I called from across the room, "Oh, actually, we aren't doing dine-in right now. Still pick up and delivery only, unless you'd like to sit outside." One man said, "Oh, we have a takeout order." But his husband kept pulling the table inside and the other one was going back for the chairs. It was really hot out, so I figured maybe they had only just called in for the order and wanted a place to sit in the air conditioning while we prepared their food. They did look to be at least 65 or 70 after all, and they had masks on, so it was no big deal. I asked for the name on their takeout order and they gave it to me. They had actually ordered quite a while ago and their food was ready. They had paid over the phone, so I handed them their bags and said bye. One of the men asked if I had included plates and silverware. We haven't been lately because people are usually taking the food home, but whatever. We're always happy to if asked. I grabbed them some. Yeah, I should have seen what was coming at this point. So of course, that's when it got weird. They carried the bag over to their inside table, unpacked it, laid out their plates and silverware, and started eating the takeout food in the restaurant. I couldn't believe it at first. I thought I must be misunderstanding, and there's no way they could be that brazen. Especially since not only do we have signs around and no tables out, but these health mandates are in place especially to protect older guys like them. I stood up and said, "Excuse me, gentlemen, you can't eat in the restaurant. We can set you up with outdoor dining if you want. Otherwise, you have to leave now." They stared blankly at me and, the gall of these guys, they went, No, it's a takeout order. We have a bag. You saw us." They thought they were so smart with this loophole. The other guy even said, "It's not like we're getting any service. You didn't even offer us water or anything." So I sighed and explained, "Whether it's takeout from here or a sandwich from the gas station, we can't have people eating inside our establishment right now. I don't make the rules, so trust me, nothing is gained from making your case with me. Please just come back when we open. It should be any day now. The guys continued ignoring me, and I don't know what they thought that would accomplish. I got up and walked over there and explained, "Look, it's not safe to have you guys in here eating without masks on right now. Not for us working in here, and definitely not for you either. Please leave." They started giving this impassioned plea about, "We haven't had a proper sit-down date in weeks," and "We really just need to get out of the house and share a meal, but it's so hot out. We are so sick of cooking." Now, I understand why they wouldn't want to eat outside on the crowded sidewalk in scorching hot weather, but in that case, they should have just gone home, or sat in the shade in the park, or whatever the rest of the world is doing to cope. We would be audited by the state at any moment, and if we're found to be violating the policies, we'd be fined heavily. And we're already hemorrhaging money from lost business as it is. Plus, if my boss saw me letting people eat inside, he'd just fire me on the spot. Because if we got fined on his watch, his boss would fire him. I explained this to them, and when they realized their "woe is me" sob story wasn't working, their candor changed real quick to, "If you can have people eating on the sidewalk, there's no reason you can't have them inside. We're the only ones in here. You're discriminating against us because of our age and because we can't eat comfortably in the heat. The news will hear about this." All the while, they were still eating. As the poet Robert Ritchie said, "I was born at night, but not last night." I realized they were planning to argue with me until they had finished their meals so they could stay inside. So eventually, I stopped trying to go back and forth with them and just said, "We've completed your transaction. I've asked you to leave. You haven't. Leave now, or I'm going to have to call the police and have you trespassed." As I was saying it, I realized I shouldn't have, because on a regular day, I would have had to check with someone more senior before calling the cops on a customer. But no one more senior in the front of house was coming into work, so now I wasn't sure what to do. I decided to confer with the only real friend I have on the staff. I called into the kitchen for a line cook I'm tight with, who has some busing experience, so kind of front of house. "Lenny, there's some guys in here who dragged a table up and they won't leave. Should I call the cops?" Lenny is as tall as a house and moonlights for an industrial moving company, so he's got a massive build. I don't know too much about where he comes from. I just know it's pretty impossible to rattle him. He came out, I guess expecting to see some punk kids. Instead, he just sees these old guys eating salads. He looks at me like I was crazy, so I explained what was going on. Then, totally emotionless, Lenny barreled over, picking up their table, still covered in food, walked it right out the door, and dropped it onto the sidewalk. The old guys were fussing and fighting, but however they tried to hold the table down didn't wobble Lenny's grip in the slightest. They ran out to drag it back in, but he locked the door behind them with the spare we keep close by. They pounded on the door for a while and filmed me ignoring them, but eventually they just kicked the table over, with most of their own food that they paid for still on top, and left. They're banned now, more for the colossal mess they made on the sidewalk than anything else, and I bought Lenny a beer after his shift. Speaking of restaurants, where are you gonna go when things go back to normal? Please let us know. Neither Applebee's or Chili's, and I haven't decided yet. Am I the jerk for not letting my roommate use my micro fridge unless she pays for 1/2 of the rent for it? I, female 19, am currently doing summer classes at my college, so I was able to stay on campus due to family issues. I have a roommate who's also 19, Jill, who seemed like she was great. Before we moved in, I asked her if she wanted to split the cost of renting a micro fridge, about $220 for the year. She says no, she doesn't need a fridge or a microwave. I rented my own and thought everything was okay. A week or so into living together, Jill asks if she can use the microwave to heat up her food from a few nights ago. I say sure, because I didn't think it was a huge deal and thought it was a one-time event. Nope. She continued asking to use the microwave for a few weeks, buying food that could only be made in a microwave without asking me if that was okay. I let it slide because I didn't really want to get into it with her. A week passed, and I told her that I wanted her to pay 1/3 of the cost if she was going to be using it that much, and she was also leaving a pretty big mess regularly inside of it. She just laughed and said that it's our microwave, and she can do what she wants with it. Then I got back from grocery shopping one day and go to put ice cream in the freezer to discover that it has a bunch of her stuff in it, leaving me with no room to put my stuff in. So I told her that if she wanted to keep using it, she had to pay me half of the rent for it. She scoffed and said that I was being a bad roommate and that it was fine for her to use it as it was in our room, and that it was unfair for me to go from 1/3 to 1/2. Well, 1/3 was when she was only using the microwave. but when she's taking up significant space, I want her to contribute to it more. I told her that I wanted her to Venmo the money to me by the end of the week, or I'd take her stuff out of the fridge and put everything in my room where she can't get to it. A week passes, still no money. I can barely fit any of my stuff in the fridge that I pay for because of everything she has in there. I reminded her a couple of times about it, going about 1.5 weeks. Then I took all of her stuff out of the fridge and put it by her bed, moving the fridge into my room and locking the door. She gets back and freaks out, yelling about how I'm a horrible roommate and she needs her Gatorade to be cold because it helps with her migraines. I've been living with her for a few weeks now, and she's never mentioned this before. And that if I don't get the fridge out of my room, she's going to get the people in charge of the dorm involved. I asked for the money again, and she said that it was her right to use it as we were sharing the room. She continued to flip out at me until I just went into my room and shut her out. Am I the jerk? I think I'm being reasonable because it's my fridge that I pay for. A few of my friends agree with me, but Jill's friends have been texting me about how I'm messing with her migraines and making her life harder because the meds don't work on her. What would you do in this situation? Would you go ahead and let her use the fridge for free or not? Please let us know. How dare she expect her to pay to use that fridge? I'm not a member of the rail staff or a taxi. I'm back with another tale from the retail crypt. I used to work at a coffee shop kiosk at a train station in the UK, and I had countless occasions where I had passengers asking me for advice about their rail travel. I would help where I could, but more often than not, I would direct them to the station staff who were actually responsible for dealing with these sorts of inquiries since it wasn't my job. Also, the information office was literally 10 feet away from the kiosk and was clearly posted with a large sign and everything. But as you're probably aware, people seem to lack the ability to see and understand signs. I have lost count of how many times clueless people would wander past the exit multiple times even though the exit was clearly marked. Anyway, most of these other stories are fairly unremarkable, but then one evening, one man took stupid to a whole new level. It was late evening, and I had about an hour left on my shift, and I had been there for 10 hours by this point, and I was due back the following morning at 5 a.m., so I was looking forward to being done for the evening. Since it's a small kiosk, there would often only be one employee on shift. Anyway, this passenger approaches, and this is the conversation that followed. This was several years ago, so it isn't verbatim, just going off my best recollection of the encounter. Passenger: Hello, could you tell me where I need to go to get to the train to York? Me: I know you'll need to be on the other side on platform 2, since platform 1 only has London-bound trains, and there should be screens with train departures and staff over there who can help you, but I don't know exactly which train you'll need or what time it leaves. Sorry. Passenger: Okay, thanks. I fell asleep on the train and missed my connection. Me: That sucks. Sorry to hear it. I know, right? Can I get a latte? Me: Sure. The guy then goes to the fridge to get a sandwich, and I begin making his drink, and I think it's all good. Just another guy who I've helped as best I can, and a customer that I can serve and make the evening a little less dull since it was usually dead in the hour before closing. As he's in the sandwich fridge, a train pulls into platform 2. The guy looks up at the train and then to me. Is that the train to York? Me: I don't think so. It says Hull on the side, so that's where I think it's headed. Passenger: Okay, as he hands me his sandwich to heat. So, do you know when the next train to York is? Me: I'm afraid not. You'll have to speak with the station staff. Passenger: Why can't you help me? Me: Because I work for a coffee shop. I haven't memorized the train schedule. Sorry. Are you sure you can't help me? I should have arrived by now, and I really don't want to have to wait for a couple more hours. Me: Sorry, I don't know. Like I said, the staff station can help you out. By this point, the guy had paid me and he has his latte, but his sandwich is being heated, so we've entered the awkward few moments of waiting while it heats. We had an old panini grill, and it would easily take 4 to 5 minutes before it would be ready. Nothing much happened for a couple of minutes when he speaks again. Passenger: How did you get here? Me: I drove. Would you give me a lift? At this point, I should mention that where I live and work is easily a 2-hour drive one way, and I was not, under any circumstances, going to drive for 4 hours, especially when I had to get up at 4 a.m. the next morning. Me: No. Passenger: Why not? He was genuinely shocked that I said no to him. Because I'm not a taxi service. I'm a barista. If you can't wait for your train, there are taxis outside that can take you. Why can't you do it? Because I'm a barista, and I have to go to bed at 9 if I want to get a decent amount of sleep tonight.
I still don't see why you can't.
It was at this moment that the timer went off, and I said, "1 moment," to the guy while I put his panini into a cardboard sleeve and handed it over to him with some napkins. This seemed to snap the guy out of his stupor, and he just thanks me and wanders off to platform 2. Sorry it's not a satisfying ending, but it mystified me how he couldn't understand what I was telling him and that I wouldn't drive him to York. I figured I'd follow his example, and the next time I went to Starbucks, I'd ask for a mocha and a ride to London. That's the job of a barista, right? If you made it this far, thanks for reading. Edit. This is just to clarify since I didn't mention it in the post. I lived 10 minutes away from where I worked at the time by car. York, where the guy wanted me to give him a lift, was a 4-hour round trip where I lived, so 2 hours each way. Sorry for the confusion. Am I the jerk for not wanting to fund my financially struggling pregnant sister's latest venture in entrepreneurship? I learned recently that my sister has a baby on the way, despite the fact that they're struggling to make ends meet. Wonderful, right? Now's really not the best time to be having a baby for multiple reasons, on top of the one that they were already struggling to make ends meet with one kid. They've already loaned a few thousand from me and other family members, including my elderly retired mom, to not end up on the streets. They both work in the restaurant industry and don't make that much. Plus, everything going on has really affected how that's been going too. My sister phoned me this morning and said, "I came up with a way to maybe get us out of this debt." And I was like, "Okay, what did you come up with?" She basically excitedly told me about this new e-restaurant idea she and her husband had, but that they needed some money to get it off the ground. It sounded like a crock of crap, but she asked if I could give her $3,000 to get started. I rolled my eyes and told her that she couldn't even get an IRL restaurant off the ground. Tried in 2013 to open their own place and eventually handed it over to a friend who was better at business, so there was no way I was helping with this one now. My brother and sister-in-law were supposed to help them manage the business side, but they gave up halfway after seeing the sales at the restaurant sucked. Moreover, my sister-in-law wanted to start her own exercise studio, and my brother had other things to help with. I'm a teacher and do not make that much. I've taught for 25 years and only make $91K. Moreover, I'll be taking the year off if I'm not selected to teach from home, so savings are even more important right now. I live with my boyfriend, who makes a good income, but don't want to depend on him too much financially as he has 2 kids to support. After I told my sister my decision, she got incredibly mad at me and said, "Okay then, I guess you want our baby to grow up in poverty because we are barely staying afloat right now and can't afford the September rent." I replied, "You shouldn't have gotten pregnant, especially not during what's going on." I also said that I had my own finances to worry about. Then my mom called me and told me I was a terrible sister and family member for not helping out. She said, "If you can't rely on family, who can you rely on?" So, am I the jerk? Karen watches as her brats tear apart my office. I work for an ENT a couple of days a week. My job is to both efficiently and accurately give patients a hearing assessment before they see the doctor. In the audiological field, ENT days are pretty well known to be quite high stress because of the complexity of assessments. The patients we assess are often there because they were referred from private hearing clinics or GPs for red flags or complicated cases, and the speed at which you are expected to assess people. I normally see between 35 to 40 patients per day. One appointment that goes a bit over the allotted time can throw off your entire day. Anyway, yesterday, one of my first morning appointments, a 55 to 60-year-old woman, entitled Grandma, showed up 20 minutes late. When I called her back to my office, she was dragging a kid, entitled Kid, who looked about 3.5. As soon as she let go of his hand, entitled Kid started running around the room, screaming and banging his minion toy on the walls. I asked entitled Grandma if she had brought anyone to watch him while I tested her. Entitled Grandma: "My daughter is in the waiting room." Me: "Okay, can you please take entitled Kid back to her then? It will be easier to do the test alone." "No, he wants to play in here." Me: "I'm sorry, but this is a doctor's office and I need to assess you. He can't be distracting you or I during the test." "Fine, I'll get my daughter." So she goes and gets the daughter, entitled Mom, who brings another kid, a girl who looked about 2, into the room. Entitled Kid 1 is still screaming and running, and entitled Kid 2 joins in immediately. I'm already upset, They were 20 minutes late and having to argue about the kid and then fetching entitled mom who was already taking another chunk of my precious time. So I get entitled grandma into the sound booth and entitled kid 1 comes running in. Me. I'm sorry, buddy, but you can't be in here. You need to go wait with your mom. Entitled grandma. No, he can stay. He wants to play in here. No, I already told you. He can't be distracting you or I during this test. And he's not just, hey, stop! Don't touch those wires. Entitled Kid 1 has started pulling out the wires plugged into the booth, and neither Entitled Grandma nor Entitled Mom do anything. I pull his hands away and guide him out of the booth, which he protests by screaming and throwing himself onto the floor. I lock eyes with Entitled Mom, and she continues to do nothing. Entitled Kid 2 has found the pediatric assessment toys and has dumped the entire bucket onto the floor. I chose to ignore this for the sake of time. While I am attempting to assess Entitled Grandma, both brats are causing complete havoc behind me. They're grabbing extremely expensive and high-tech instruments off of my shelves. They are taking hearing aid color chips and trying to rip them apart. They are throwing the pediatric toys all over the room. They are climbing onto my desk chair and knocking over everything in my desk. All the while, Entitled Mom is sitting there doing absolutely nothing, casually and placidly observing the wreckage. I had to stop testing 4 times to stop the entitled brats from ruining equipment probably worth more than the average car. Entitled Grandma could hardly hear my instructions through the microphone because of the screaming. My blood was just about boiling at this point, but it is my job to be professional. Eventually, I finish Entitled Grandma's assessment and the room is in ruins. Me to Entitled Mom. Your kids need to clean up what they've done. Entitled Mom. Isn't that your job? No. My job is to assess hearing. Your kids made this mess and now they need to clean it up. I need to take the next patient. Entitled Mom. They don't want to clean up. Listen, this is a doctor's office, not a daycare. You and your kids need to clean this up now while I get ready for the next patient. There are toys in the waiting room that they can play with. So Entitled Mom and the kids do clean up what they've thrown around, but Entitled Kid 2 is still holding one of the pediatric assessment toys as they try to leave the room. Me. She still has a toy in her hand. I need that back. You have a whole bucket of toys. Can't she keep just one? Me. No. I need them for assessing other kids. She needs to put it back. Entitled Kid, can I please have the toy back? Of course, being 2, Entitled Kid doesn't want to. She hides it behind her back and tries to leave, but I hold the door shut. Entitled Mom. You are being selfish. She's only 2 and just wants one toy. Me. Again, this is a doctor's office. The equipment in here is necessary for the work that I do. If you do not give the toy back, I can't imagine the doctor will allow you back to this practice. Entitled Mom still doesn't see this as a problem, so I reach down and pry the toy out of her hand. She screams and throws herself onto the floor. I open the door to let them out. Me. Have a nice day. Entitled Mom. Death glare. 2 ladies scream at each other across the checkout lines. Several years ago, when I worked in retail, this incident is what stands out and is by far the craziest story from my retail experience. The 2 most important characters of this story. We've got Mom Lady, a woman who came in and almost always had 5 boys with her. While one kid was in the cart, the others would run around and yell and be underfoot. Kinda makes you reconsider having kids. Deputy Woman, lady in her 40s to 50s and is a deputy in the police department, or so she claimed. This happened in the middle of a Sunday rush, and there are 5 cashiers open. All of us are busy. My designated role was bagger on that fateful day, so I'm doing my stuff for the cashier when Deputy Woman comes through our line. 2 rows over, Mom Lady and her 4 kids come through. The kids start running around, yelling, and rolling across the floor. Our store manager at that time was a tower of a man, who I'm pretty sure reached 7 feet or so, was trying to not step on a rolling kid. Rolling kid was at the exit between 2 checkout lanes, so that made stepping around him difficult. Store manager needed to be moving, but his progress was hindered by the kid constantly rolling where he needed to put his foot down. Finally, the store manager was able to walk around the kid and just do what needed to be done for the cashiers and customers. All the while, the other kids are just adding to the chaos. This is paraphrased, but is the gist. Deputy woman loudly demands, "Whose kids are those?" Mom lady, "They're mine." Deputy woman, "You need to discipline your kids." Mom lady, "How I raise my kids is none of your business." Deputy woman, "You can't even get your kids to behave. You deserve to have them taken away. I am a deputy in the police department, and I will report you. Someone give me her number so I can report her." Nobody gave deputy woman mom lady's number. Mom lady, "Forget you, jerk." Deputy woman, "Forget you. I will report you. I'm a deputy in the police department." This round of yelling lasted a bit longer with the "forget you" and calling each other names. Deputy woman continued repeating that she was a deputy and that she would report mom lady. All the while, us workers are keeping our heads down and doing our jobs with a particularly intense focus. It was so bad, I thought we were going to have to call the police to break up a fight. After spitting a few more insults at each other, mom lady and deputy went their separate ways at opposite ends of the store. I was honestly half expecting someone to run in from outside and yell that there were two ladies having a smackdown in the parking lot. The rush ended at this time as well, and all of us were laughing awkwardly and were beet red. Another cashier came up and said that her customer asked if the ladies were going to fight. I didn't see mom lady again for about 6 months, and when I saw her again, she always only had 1 or 2 kids with her, 1 kid in the cart and the other free. Deputy lady was never seen again. Entitled mom claims car wash damaged entitled kid's car, even though we had evidence the car was already damaged. Okay, so I work at a car wash, and about a week ago, a kid comes up to me claiming that the wash had scraped the bumper of his 2020 Mercedes. Me, well, looking at it, that appears to be where someone hit some concrete. Nothing in the wash would cause that kind of damage. Entitled kid,
Well, it wasn't like that before going into the wash, and now it's destroyed.
me, okay, well, there is a process to this. I'm going to get some information from you and then take some pictures. After that, I will investigate it and call you in a couple of days. Entitled kid,
Okay, who do I take my car to get it repaired?
me, well, no one yet. First, I have to investigate it, and then I'll give you further instruction.
Well, what is there to investigate? The car wash damaged my car. Case closed.
Me, I understand how you feel, but I have to. It's our policy. Entitled kid,
You can't be serious. This car costs more than your house, and you expect me to drive around like this for days, waiting for you to pull some BS? I'm calling my dad. He's a lawyer.
me, okay, well, now there is nothing I can do for you. Since you've decided to get legal action involved, you have to deal with our legal team. Let me grab you their number. Entitled kid,
Yeah, you had better do that. My dad has never lost a case.
at this point, I step inside to grab the corporate number, and he holds his phone up to his ear to make a call. I grab him the card and hand it to him and walk back inside. About an hour goes by when I see another nice car pull into the exit and fly up to the wash office. Entitled mom,
Are you the manager?
me, yes ma'am, how can I be of help?
I want to know what makes you think you can talk to my son like he's trash.
Me, ma'am, I haven't the slightest idea what you're talking about. A little background for you. I've been described as one of the nicest people most people know. I'm always smiling. I apologize too much and constantly have a caring tone to my voice. So I was genuinely confused what this lady was talking about. Entitled mom,
Your wash ruined my son's car, and you told him to go forget himself. Remember now?
me, oh yes, he was here about an hour ago. Yes, I tried to get a damage claim going, but he said that his father was a lawyer and was going to sue us. So I gave him the number for our legal department.
BS. He told me what really happened. You lied that there was nothing you could do, then tried lying about how the wash couldn't have damaged his car. Then you wanted to make him wait weeks when you messed around, hoping he'd forget. He had to call his father, who is a lawyer, just to get you to pay attention to him.
Me, ma'am, I explained to your son that there is a process. It takes me about 2 days to investigate what happened and get him taken care of. He chose to instead yell at me and threaten to sue the company.
Well, of course he did. It doesn't take a genius to see that his car was messed up from the wash. It went in brand new and came out deformed. I'm surprised this place is still in business. Now get me the number for your mechanic before I have to call my husband.
Me. Ma'am, I'll tell you what. Give me 1 minute and let me look into something. Before she could say a word, I turned around and went back inside and got on the viewing computer. There are several cameras that video your car going in so we can see all prior damage, and right as he entered, there it was. Me. Okay, ma'am, I was able to look at the cameras of him entering the wash. If you'd like to come take a look, I'll show you.
I don't have time for this BS.
She walks in and sits down. I show her the video and show her him entering the tunnel. Me. So you can see that this is the video of him entering the wash. It was clearly already damaged before the wash. Entitled Mom.
No. This is photoshopped. I know for a fact his car left the house today in perfect condition.
Me. And that's very possible. But somewhere along the line, he damaged it after that, but before the wash, and here is the proof.
No, this doesn't prove anything, but it's fine. Hope your crappy car wash has a great lawyer. You're gonna need them.
Then she leaves. As she was leaving though, she ran over a parking cone we had out for distancing. I think I now know how the car got damaged. Speaking of Mercedes, what's your favorite car of all time? Please let us know.
Easily a tie between Mercedes and BMW, but you peasants wouldn't know about that.
Entitled Teacher's Kid gets absolutely wrecked. This is the tale of how an entitled and borderline sociopathic classmate of mine had her academic life ruined before it had even started over some petty BS. Allow me to introduce her. I'll call her Karen Jr. Karen Jr. was a pretty decent student who made equally decent grades. Certainly nothing to scoff at. However, she didn't take any particularly hard classes, and it seemed as if she was merely skating by in school, waiting for the greater things in life. She was also a mythic jerk. She had money and often flaunted it. She looked down at kids who didn't have as much as she did, and was a classic case of spoiled jerk syndrome. She also had a habit of sending her mom on anyone who dared to rub her the wrong way. Let's talk about her. Her mom worked at the school as a math teacher and was very chummy with most of the other teachers, as well as the administration of both the school and the local county board. She was also a jerk. She would intentionally fail high-achieving students who might make her precious daughter look worse in the long run. We'll call this teacher Karen. As for myself, I was a senior in high school at the time of all of this, class of 2019. I'm currently a college sophomore. In high school, I was one of the top students in my class. My undergraduate studies have been entirely paid for by academic scholarships, and I was one of a handful who were poised to be valedictorian for our class. Of course, this title didn't mean much to me. I worked my butt off for scholarship money, not for some silly title. I'm saying this now not to brag, but because it's important to the story later. It's also important to note that this story takes place in the thick of college admission season. Seniors were scrambling to write essays, get important documents together, and raise standardized test scores before it was all said and done. I mostly only ever had class with Karen Jr. when I was taking courses required to graduate. These weren't hard classes at all, and certainly were not weighted. Typically, my other classes would be AP or dual credit courses to academically challenge myself and to raise my GPA for scholarships. I rarely had class with Karen Jr. in any of these courses, and the class size was so small for APs at my school that if she had been, we would have been in the same class for sure. This was very odd, as she struck me as capable to handle the course load. That's when it began. You see, Karen Jr., like many other folks at this time, had also been trying to raise her test scores for college admissions. She claimed that she had anxiety, and as a result, she got some special accommodations whenever it was time to take tests, both for classes and standardized. However, she was notoriously extroverted in class discussions and never struck me as the nervous type. I have dealt with generalized anxiety disorder for years, and I wasn't buying it. I also didn't want to use this as a cop-out to get special privileges, but if that's what the psychologist's note said, I didn't have an issue with it. For regular class tests, this meant that she got to leave the room and take her test somewhere else. She typically went to the library, where she could take it in a more isolated setting. There was a rare situation where we did share a class, AP US Government. The teacher was also great friends with Karen. At my high school, it was known as one of the easier AP classes due to the heavy focus on vocabulary and the lack of challenging concepts. We had tests in there on a 2-week basis after covering the material in the textbook. I would study my butt off for each and every test, and I always ended up with low A's. This was fine in my book, since the other assignments would keep my grade above the 95 mark. As per usual, Karen Jr. would leave class every 2 weeks to take the test. This was all well and good, and she got a 100 on every single test. She's a capable student, but she's certainly no genius. She would also flaunt to her friends how she never studies for any of her tests because she just gets it. This continued for the first little bit of the course, until one test day. The library was closed down after some water damage had been uncovered and a pretty bad storm. She couldn't take the test in the library as usual and had to take it with the rest of us. She seemed hesitant, but the teacher insisted that there was nowhere else suitable in the school for test taking, and so she took the test and gloriously bombed it. I don't know exactly what she got, but she had shed a few tears as soon as she saw her grade. She claimed that it had been misgraded by the Scantron and insisted that it was rescored. She got the same score. I assumed that it was due to her anxiety, and I felt bad for her. That sympathy went away in an instant when, during class, she whispered to one of her friends that she'd always go to her mom's classroom instead of the library to take her tests. I always had a skill for eavesdropping, since I was a relatively unassuming person who didn't say much in class. I didn't know what this meant for sure, but I assume her mom, Karen, had looked up the answers for it. That explained immediately why she had gotten perfect scores on the previous tests and why she had bombed this one. However, her blatant cheating didn't affect me one bit, so I turned a blind eye and kept doing my own thing. Then the situation escalated a slight bit. See, her anxiety also allowed her some special privileges for taking standardized college placement exams like the ACT and the SAT. One of my friends had a sister who genuinely had a learning disability and absolutely needed the extra time. She was incredibly sweet. We'll call the sister Destiny. Destiny explained to me that when you present to the SAT testing facility with accommodations, you had two options. You could either take each of the 4 ACT sections, 5 sections if you took it with writing, on separate days under normal time constraints, or take all of the sections on the same day with double the time on each section. Destiny also explained that all test takers with accommodations took the exam on the same day, different than normal test takers, so that they could ensure that each student's needs could be met. Destiny mentioned how Karen Jr. got a special room to take her tests in, not unlike her regular tests. That's all well and good, she thought, except when Destiny finished her exams, she noticed that Karen Jr. hadn't finished with the rest of the students. She assumed this meant that Karen Jr. had opted for the extended time option. Until, on Karen Jr.'s social media, she posted about how she was ready for day 2 of ACT testing. Sure enough, she had taken it over the course of several days. All of this meant that, somehow, Karen Jr. had taken the ACT with both accommodation options. I wasn't sure how something like this would have been possible. Karen Jr. got a spectacular score on her exam, something like a 32 or a 33. Again, this didn't particularly bother me. Her test scores don't affect me one bit. I decided to take the information with a laugh and move on with my life. This is when it went from annoying to personal. You see, several students, including myself, were in the running to be our class's valedictorian. I didn't care too much, since the distinction wouldn't have gotten me any extra money from the college I was planning on attending. It was quite the shock to learn that Karen Jr., beyond a shadow of a doubt, was going to be our valedictorian for that year. To me and many others, this seemed impossible. She hadn't taken nearly as many weighted classes as the lot of us and was a good student at best. Also, Karen Jr.'s best friend was lined up to be the salutatorian, second in class rank. She was also a pretty mediocre student. So how did they both manage to get a higher GPA than us? We had been taking APs since freshman year. The answer came to me as I was eating lunch one day. One of my friends, we'll call him Aaron, had been making up a calculus test in Karen Jr.'s mom's room. While he was there, he had overheard some seriously juicy information. Karen was looking at the student transcripts of high-ranking students, including myself, and had arranged for Karen Jr.'s schedule to inflate her GPA so much that it passed my own and the GPAs of other hard-working students. This included taking some online classes from a local college, which I was never permitted to take. This is because the classes were so specific that the credits didn't transfer. We're talking about a college class about proper walking/exercising technique here. Easy crap. What's more concerning is that these students' transcripts contained very sensitive information that included, but was not limited to, last 4 digits of social security, home addresses, phone numbers, medical history, approved medication, and academic records of all kinds. Why they had openly whispered about this stuff with another student in the room was beyond me. I didn't want to take this information at face value, so I looked up the list of faculty that had permission to access student transcript information in the first place. Only a handful of teachers could do this. Wouldn't you believe that Karen's name was most certainly on that list? I also ran the numbers myself. It was totally possible to arrange a schedule of BS classes that would exceed everyone else's GPA. The same had been done to Karen Jr.'s best friend's schedule, just not to the same extent. I was livid. That was my personal information, which, if leaked, could cause some serious privacy issues. Part of my social was on there, for heaven's sake. So I decided that I wasn't going to take this lying down anymore. I looked up the regulations and codes regarding the sharing of a student transcript without consent, and oh boy, all of that crap is under FERPA law. And if you don't know anything about FERPA, just know that they don't mess around in the slightest. The state penalties alone for sharing student documents with a third party without consent, either from the parent, if the student is under 18, or the student itself, was a hefty fine, possible termination, and further federal penalties. We're talking possible jail time if the information shared led to consequences for the student whose information was shared. All I needed was proof. Along with Aaron's testimony, I wanted irrevocable proof that Karen and Karen Jr. were doing shady crap. So I hatched a plan. I was in the show choir, and so I had access to some decent recording equipment, including some single-use audio recorders. These were used by judges during competitions to give quick feedback on the show, and also for student auditions. They were small, discreet, and silent. They also had a neat feature where you could set a timer on the thing to tell it to start recording after so much time had passed. I set the timer so the recorder would start during lunch. Before school one day, I went up to Karen's room to glance briefly and see if she was in there. She was not, and her room was not locked. Her classroom was on the 2nd floor, so the stairwell door downstairs alone was locked at night. However, they unlocked these doors before school so that janitors could do spot cleaning before normal class hours. I taped one of these recorders under her chair, set the timer for around lunchtime and her planning period. They were back to back, and waited. I went back at the end of the day. I had choir practice, and retrieved the recorder before the downstairs doors were locked. They left them unlocked for extracurricular activities because freshman and sophomore lockers were upstairs. I got home and began playing the tape. Bingo! I had my irrefutable evidence. It was all there. Conversations about Karen viewing student transcripts and disclosing that information with a third party, Karen Jr. Now, I had another problem. You see, Karen was extremely friendly with the administration, so I had to find someone who I knew would take me seriously and would cooperate, while keeping my identity a secret. Fortunately, my counselor, we were each assigned one based on our last name, was a real stand-up guy, and I knew he'd come in clutch. He also wasn't close with Karen, unlike many of the other counselors and higher-up staff. I went with Aaron to his office, and I took my laptop with the audio file backed up onto it. We presented our case. You see, to file a FERPA violation report, you needed a member of the administration of the offending organization, this included my counselor, to go on record saying that the complaint was legitimate and that further investigation was warranted. The complaint was also anonymous. He gave me his sweet approval on the form. I filed the complaint and waited. The fallout was glorious. The school's administration was forced to do an objective audit on all of Karen's activity at the school, where they confirmed that all of this BS had been taking place. Karen Jr.'s valedictorian status and her friend's salutatorian status were sacked, and another, more deserving kid was presented with the honor. I myself was awarded salutatorian, although this didn't matter to me so much. The school was fined by FERPA for breach of policy, and Karen might get fired. I never found out. I was graduated before all of that took place. In retrospect, she probably wasn't fired over this because she knew folks on the county school board, but it's fun to dream. But it doesn't end there. During the audit, they also found evidence that Karen Jr. had been coming to her mom's room during regular tests and copying down answers from the internet, and she faced severe disciplinary action for that. That certainly wouldn't look good on her record. We're talking in-school suspension due to multiple documented violations. The icing on the cake was when they discovered the foolery regarding her ACT accommodations. Turns out her mom had been pulling the string behind the scenes to get her accommodations for that anxiety we talked about earlier. The ACT company takes cheating very seriously, and so they voided her pristine standardized testing score, which had landed her a full scholarship to her university of choice. The same ended up happening with some of her SAT and AP scores as well, for reasons that I never personally discovered. Karen Jr. lost all of her scholarship money from the university and ended up attending an in-state college, which took the few scores that were not voided and also weren't fraudulent. Those scores probably weren't nearly as good as her voided ones. All of this news was absolutely buzzing around the school, and Karen Jr. was disgraced. I did my part in my graduation ceremony a few months later, and all was well. I never intended for it to go so far, but I don't feel bad one bit. Revenge is sweet and best served by FERPA. Thanks for reading. Have you ever seen someone cheating on a test? If so, did you tell anyone? Please let us know.
Nothing wrong with a little cheating here and there.
That's how I graduated high school. Karen at hotel I work at demands I do her laundry. I work at a hotel in a college town. I've seen some madness in my time at the hotel, but have been completely desensitized to it all. I've also met some pretty entitled people. I've been screamed at and attacked, but this particular person has definitely made me question my life and reminded me why I am in college to better my life. Some information about my workplace. We will allow 3 room moves if necessary. So the room you're assigned to at check-in is the first one. Then if you move, that's the second. Move again, that's the third. If you wish to move another time, then you're being charged for that room. However, this policy only occurs if the person has no valid reason for a room move. Now, if the person's third room ends up having a busted pipe, that's completely different. But this lady in the story is why we have this policy. Also, my job is to check people in and get them what they need and help within the policy at work. My job is not to do guest laundry. I can direct you to where there are laundry services in town that will do it for you, but it is not my job to do your laundry, especially with everything going on. Another thing to add, because of what's going on, I'm not allowed to touch anybody's belongings. I'm not allowed to enter a room unless I am invited into said room. This is to avoid lawsuits, and it's a safety measure. Now, onto the majestic story. I was working a 3 to 11 shift. I had 10 arrivals. It was going to be a very slow night. A woman came in to check in. We will call her Anna. Anna was not coherent at all. It took a while for her to fill out the paperwork and couldn't understand why I needed her ID. I must have this to make sure you are the person on the reservation. It was clear as day Anna was on something. Upon filling out the paper I handed her, she realized that there was an extra row of tables between her and I, along with plexiglass blocking each other. Anna:
What is this?
Insert her gesturing to the tables. Me: Oh, due to what's going on, we have to have an extra table between us and the guest to ensure both safety. Anna:
Okay, but why this glass?
She taps on it. Me: To ensure both of our safety.
Okay, well, I don't appreciate you doing this.
I'm sorry, ma'am, but the tables and glass are here to stay.
When I come to the lobby to ask for help, or when I stay here in the future, I expect you to move all of this. I don't like any of this. This is a hotel, and it makes it look like trash.
Anna looked like somebody who did illegal things and was very small and tiny. To give context, I'm 5'10". She came up to my chest, maybe. I informed her that taking all of this down when she, and only she, came down to the lobby, that it would be impossible to do, because management says that this has to be up at all times, no exceptions. Also, no. Who made you the queen of the hotel and the owner of my plexiglass? She storms out to her car when I checked her in. She comes back with a luggage cart full of belongings. I put her in 324. She's in the room for 2 hours. She comes down and demands the bottom floor. I informed her I had no rooms ready on the bottom floor due to the large amount of departures, but I will gladly move her later when they're ready. Anna:
What? What do you mean I have to wait?
Me: I don't have rooms ready on the bottom floor, ma'am. You'll have to wait till later.
No, I want it now. There's no point in going to 324 when I can have the bottom floor now.
Me: Again, ma'am, you have to wait for the room move. Nothing is clean. She gets mad and storms off. I go back to cleaning when 30 minutes later, she appears behind me and asks me to write down directions to get to the grocery store across the street. Me: Oh, sure. So you turn left, then left again, go straight and then turn left. I wrote it down and all. Anna:
So, I have to do laundry. If I give it to you, you'll do it, right?
Me: I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm not allowed to do laundry for guests. I'm not allowed to touch your belongings at all.
Wait, seriously? I need laundry done. I need you to do it.
Me: I'm sorry, ma'am, but no, I cannot do your laundry. We have a self-serve laundry to the right down the hall.
I know that. I want you to go down there and do it for me.
Me. No, I'm not doing your laundry. Your laundry is your responsibility. Anna gets annoyed and leaves for her car. She comes back an hour later, goes to 324, calls me, and demands I come to her room and pack her belongings up for her. Again, I'm not allowed to touch their belongings at all. And even before all of this started, packing up guest belongings was a huge no on policy. I informed her that I will help her move her belongings to the new room, but I will not pack up her items. That is on her. Anna.
I don't understand why you won't do it.
Me. Ma'am, I've told you. I am not allowed to touch anybody's belongings at all. I can't touch your belongings. If you pack your things, put them on the luggage cart, then I can push the luggage cart to your new room. She agreed to this. I move her to 102. I go to 324 and I push the luggage cart to the elevator. Anna.
Oh, here.
Anna tried to put her suitcase, which has wheels, in my hand. Again, I cannot touch their belongings. Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't touch your belongings. If you want, you can put it on the luggage cart and I'll push it. There's plenty of room.
No, I want you to pull it to my new room with the luggage cart.
I can't move a luggage cart that's full to the top with her belongings and pull a suitcase. Suitcase has wheels, by the way. Also, I have an arm brace on and can barely move the luggage cart forward without being in pain. I have serious carpal tunnel from my years in volleyball and computer programming. Me. No, ma'am, I will not. Please put it on the luggage cart or you carry it. These are the options. She got mad and finally took it to 102. I put her belongings inside the room and run to the desk to find a line in the lobby. I checked everybody in super fast, all are happy, but Anna came to the lobby and cut in front of a lovely woman I was helping. Anna.
I need you to do my laundry. I want a nap.
Me. Ma'am, you're cutting. Please get in line and I will help you in the appropriate order.
I need you to do my laundry. I don't know how to do it.
Me, now shocked. What? No, I'm not doing your laundry, ma'am. Please do not ask again, for this is the last time I will be telling you no. I will not do your laundry. She gets mad and stomps off. I helped. She doesn't know how to do laundry. I helped the guest, and the guest looked very confused. Me too, lady. Me too. For the rest of my shift, every 30 minutes she'd come to the desk and ask me to move her stuff from 102 back to 324, then 324 back to 102. It got to the point I ended up denying her because I wasn't able to do my actual job. She also complained that the hotel was too empty and she didn't like how quiet it was. She asked why it was so quiet. I just looked at her and informed her that what's going on has destroyed our business. That is why it is so quiet. This was a constant complaint. She would also ask for all of the welcome amenities we have that are free. Because they're free, we only give one out to each room. This depends on how many people are in the room, of course. But since she was the only one in the room, she only got one. She kept coming to the desk and asking for razors and shaving cream, toothbrushes and toothpaste, a lot of toilet paper, to which I denied. We aren't a store, we are a hotel. If you need a lot, you have to buy it yourself. She doesn't like me saying no, and me remembering I already gave her what she asked for. She then asked if anybody else was in the hotel that would give it to her. I told her no, and we note what room already got the free amenities, and she won't get any more. Especially since she was only here for one night. Now, it got quiet for the last 2 hours of my shift, but at 10 p.m., an hour before I left, she called me from 102 and asked for another room move, not to 324, but to a whole different room. I asked why. She said she didn't feel safe. Okay, I'll allow the room move. I moved her in the system to 208. She called and demanded the exact same thing.
Pick up my things for me.
Again, no, I can't touch your belongings. She got mad, packed up her own things again. I went to 102 to hand her the keys. I got curious about the room and why it wasn't safe for her, so I asked. Me, what's the issue with the room, ma'am? Anna,
I don't like how it looks.
Me, all of my rooms are like this, ma'am. They're all the exact same.
I don't care. I want a different room.
If you wish, ma'am. However, this is the last room move. You get no more.
Yes, that's fine. Take my stuff to the room. Here's my suitcase.
Me, sounding like a broken record and clearly exhausted. I can't touch your belongings, ma'am. Please put it on the luggage cart or you carry it.
Oh my god, this is ridiculous. Do you know who I am?
Me. Anna.
I am related to Paul McCartney.
Me.
My security that is provided to me by Paul McCartney said I am in serious danger. That is why I am here.
Me. Ma'am, if you yell at me one more time, you can move the luggage cart yourself. Anna's attitude changed. I moved the luggage cart to 208. When I entered the room for 208, I put the luggage cart in the room. Anna.
I don't like this room.
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you have to pick either 102, 324, or this room. These are your options. Anna.
Whatever. We need to find a different room. Let's go to the next one. I need to look at it.
Me. No! You need to pick this room or the other two.
What are the other rooms? Why do I have to pick?
Me. There was nothing wrong with the other rooms. As of now, you're costing the hotel money. We allow 3 room moves. If you go over 3, we will charge you for the cost of the room.
Well, I don't like these rooms. I am Paul McCartney's family member, and my security said I am not safe in those rooms or this one.
Me. I'm sorry, ma'am, but you need to either pick this one or the other two. These are your options.
Fine. 324.
I push the luggage cart to the elevator, go to the 3rd floor, all the way down the hall to 324, and I put the luggage cart in there. Anna.
Actually, no. I want 208.
I was about to snap. Me. Ma'am, I'm not moving this luggage cart until you figure out which room you want. We sat in the hall for 5 minutes. Anna.
I want 208.
I push the cart to the elevator, go to the 2nd floor, push it to 208, I put the cart in 208, and I leave. I'm at the desk working. It's 10:50 at night, 10 minutes until I get off work, when the phone rang. Anna.
I don't like this room. I want a different one.
I thought about hanging up, honestly. Anna.
Well, what are you going to do?
Me. 102, 208, or 324. Which one do you want, ma'am?
I don't want any of those rooms.
Then I will be charging you at the starting rate tonight for the room move.
No, I am not okay with that. I am in danger. You are putting me in danger.
This woman was clearly on something. I try to be understanding with people with these kinds of issues, but I have had it. I had moved her between all of these rooms 5 times. I cannot continue to do this for the rest of the night because she's on something and hallucinating. Me. 102, 208, or 324. These are the rooms you're allowed to choose from.
Fine, 102.
I go back upstairs. Before I moved her rooms again though, I told her I need all of the keys to the previous rooms. She refuses to give them to me. I told her I will not move her again until she gives me those keys now. She gave me the keys. I moved her to 102. I tell my night auditor to take a new set of keys to 102 and to look at every room she had access to and to charge her for every stolen item in the room. All of the towels in 208 had magically disappeared. I finally got to go home. I took a shower, pet my dog and cats, then I got a call from work. Night auditor. 102 wants to move rooms again and said she has only had 1 room move and that you're mean. I told him everything. He laughed and said, so she needs to pick between 102, 208, or 324? Okay, cool. And that was that. My management said I did a good job being patient and I did a good job following the rules. They gave me an energy drink because of her. Karen demands I stop watching anime. A few months ago, I was having a good time with my friends in the park, chatting, and overall, just having a good time. It was getting pretty late, so I had to go because I don't live next to my friends, so I had to take the bus home. Everything was fine until I got on the bus. Now that I think about it, the typical Karen Hare should have alarmed me to sit somewhere away from her, entitled Mom, and her kid, entitled Kid. I sit next to them. The buses in that area had free Wi-Fi, and I wanted to watch some romantic anime with my headphones. Somebody touched me, so I turned my head, and you would never guess who it was, entitled Mom.
Hey, what are you watching there?
Me. I'm watching anime, entitled Mom.
That seems like a cartoon. Childish.
Me. Could you please leave me alone? I was quite annoyed because I have realized what is going on at this point. Entitled Mom.
It is clearly a cartoon. Let my son watch.
Me. This isn't for kids, ma'am. Entitled Mom.
It obviously is. You just don't want to share.
Then I had an idea, which was kind of bad, but I couldn't stop myself. Me. Sure, why not? Your son can watch it. I hand over the phone with headphones. Entitled mom proceeds to give my phone to her son with my headphones. Few minutes pass, and the entitled kid says, "Mom, why are those people hugging so strangely?" Entitled mom, "Let me see." You can probably guess what was happening in that scene. Evil smile. Entitled mom quickly takes the phone from the entitled kid's hand, unplugs the headphones, and I seriously thought that the socket would break, but it didn't. Phew.
You monster! How dare you show things like that to my kid?
The bus stops at a random station, which is pretty close to my house. Me, "I said it wasn't for kids, Karen." I grab my phone and headphones before entitled mom can respond and get off the bus. It was the worst and at the same time best moment of my life for now. I told my friends about this story when I got home and we were laughing so hard, I loved it. P.S. The kid wasn't entitled. I hope I didn't ruin his life, but I'm pretty sure he won't even understand what was happening. I think he was around 3 or 4. Speaking of anime, what's your favorite anime of all time? Please let us know.
JoJo's Bizarre Adventure for the win.
Karen demands to plan our wedding and throws a Facebook tantrum when I decline. So this happened yesterday, and I'm at a loss for words to be honest. For those who have read my previous posts, you would know that I, 31 male, have proposed to my now fiancé, 29 female, back in 2018, and other than initial decisions on which venue, we haven't made a single step in further planning our wedding. With everything going on right now, we decided to hold off future wedding plans until the situation is 100% solved. Well, yesterday I was on a Zoom call with several of my cousins just chatting up on things and whatnot. At some point into the call, one of my cousin's wives barged into the conversation and pretty much took over it. She's not well liked at all in our family, so the call ended soon after she invited herself in. Anyways, about 30 minutes after the call had ended, cousin's wife called up my phone, and before I could even say hello, she just started interrogating me about my wedding. And when I said that we haven't planned anything yet, she began gushing about how we should hold it at the venue she held hers at, along with catering, DJ, and so forth, even going as far as to donate us her playlist. She said she'll get right to it and she'll handle everything for us. Now, if there was an award for the worst wedding ever, cousin's wife would be in their Hall of Fame. First, the venue was a dump, in the middle of nowhere, with no roads connecting to it from the highway. It was so bad, many of the guests weren't able to find it, so a lot of them were extremely late or ended up getting frustrated and traveled back home. Furthermore, the venue was not handicap friendly, so it wasn't fun for the more elderly and wheelchair-bound guests, including cousin's wife's own brother. Also, the venue had no restrooms available, and the only ones that were available were located about a 30-minute walk away. Adding on, when we got to the venue, we saw that there were a lot of cats literally on the guest tables, and some guests were horrified to find cat poop at their designated seats and tables. The staff took its time to do something about it, so those guests left soon after. Next, the food. The food itself was terrible. The desserts were in a horrible shape and were nothing but a crumbling crust and fruit paste that had to be scraped onto the plate. The cooked dishes weren't properly stored beforehand, and lots of it smelled spoiled, which later turned out to be true since people began complaining about stomach pains. Third, wedding ceremony in the midst of summer at an outdoor venue is not a good idea. Cousin's wife's wedding ceremony was incredibly long, about 2 hours. Again, it was the middle of summer at an outdoor venue, so it was hot. Not only had staff closed the bar for the 2 whole hours of the ceremony, we weren't even able to get a glass of water. Fourth, the staff. They were highly unprofessional, and while they did have fans set up at the beginning around the tables and dance floor, they were later picked up and the owner refused to get them out even though people were starting to fry. Finally, the music/DJ. The music was ridiculously loud, as in take the maximum volume on Gerard 401 speakers and multiply it by 20 times. While of course it's only natural for people to have a different taste in music, let's just say that the playlist cousin's wife had chosen didn't fit a wedding at all. If anything, it was more suitable for a kid's birthday party. Needless to say, with lack of any ventilation and the extremely loud volume, other than cousin's wife and her few sisters and friends, the dance floor was mostly deserted. I didn't stay long much either, and left right after my fiancé began complaining about severe stomach pains, which later turned out to be food poisoning. We spent the night at the ER, so that was fun. Back in the present, cousin's wife kept running my ear off how amazing hers was, and how ours could be just as amazing if we stuck to her plan. meaning copy and paste hers onto ours. When she had noticed I was silent, she was about to pitch her idea to me again, but I quickly shut it down. I reminded how a good chunk of her guests ended up with food poisoning, my fiancé included, as well as that several of the said guests later on sued the venue. I then informed her that my fiancé and I have already decided which venue we'd like our wedding to be at, and basically informed her that while I appreciate her willingness to help out, our tastes do not match and would prefer to consult people who are more familiar with fiancé and myself. I was upset and wanted to rage on about how her wedding sucked, and our grandfather, mine and her husband's grandfather, nearly ended up dehydrated, but I held it in and simply ended the call. I knew she was upset because this was a woman who has rarely heard the word no throughout her life, so I was mentally preparing for whatever hostile fire coming my way, and sure enough, cousin hits up my phone and demands to know what I said to his wife because she hasn't stopped crying since we ended our conversation. I told him she decided upon herself to plan our wedding, but I refused. He was a bit hysterical at first, but calmed down a bit after I explained myself. He knows I wouldn't make this stuff up. His wife, on the other hand, said I called her names, that my fiancé hates her. She does, but I've never said anything about it. That we're going to sue her, and that my family can't wait until my cousin divorces her. I chuckled a bit and told cousin exactly what I said, and even offered to send him a recording of the call. All of my calls are recorded. Trust issues. He said he'd like to listen to it, so I later sent him the recording. He later called again and said that they had a big argument and she went to spend the night at a friend's. Later that night, it was brought up to my attention that cousin's wife went on social media to say how I'm a horrible person who hates her and is the sole reason of why her marriage is crumbling. However, she soon removed the posts when people who knew better came to defend me, and I even made a reply that I can share the recording with whoever's interested. Edit. Guys, I won't be sharing the recording here because 1. It's all in Hebrew. 2. It was offered as a comment on her Facebook post cousin's wife made, but have since removed it as she got caught. Speaking of weddings, have you ever been to a wedding? And if so, did you like it? Please let us know.
Oh, I love weddings when the food's good.
Am I the jerk for telling my date not to bother coming after she said she'd be 40 minutes late? This happened a while ago, and I don't feel guilty, but friends keep suggesting to me since then that I was a jerk. Here goes. I spoke to this girl, let's call her Carol, on Hinge, and we had a good conversation. She seemed nice. Eventually, we settled on a date, and I booked a fun-themed restaurant/bar for 7:30 p.m. the following Saturday. Saturday comes around, and we're still texting back and forth a lot during the day. I arrive at the restaurant at 7:25 p.m. and get shown to the reserved table. I let Carol know that I've arrived, and at 7:30 she messages me back saying that she hasn't left the house yet and it will take her 40 minutes to get to the restaurant. I told Carol that 40 minutes is too long for me to wait and that she should stay at home. Carol then tells me that it's not her fault because she didn't know the date was going ahead. I respond by saying I don't even slightly believe that, as we had been speaking about it during that day and she had no reason to believe it was canceled. Karen then says that she is sorry and that she will come anyway and hopes that we can start fresh when she gets there. But at this point, I'm really turned off and ask her please not to. I have a pizza myself in the restaurant. Wasn't going to lose my deposit. And shortly after I finish my food and leave, Carol tells me that she has finally arrived at the restaurant herself. I tell her that I've gone to drop in on some friends who live nearby, and she apologizes again. We leave it there. So, am I the jerk? Edit. Wow, thanks for all the feedback. To clear up a common question, yes, we both very explicitly agreed a week in advance that I would book that restaurant for that day at that time, and there was no suggestion of changing that in the intervening time. When Carol said, I didn't know it was going ahead, was, I think, worse than being late in the first place. It sounded like she was lying to get out of trouble. She more or less admitted that it had been a lie not long afterwards when I called BS. What would you have done in this situation? Would you have stayed there and waited for her to show up, or just left? Please let us know.
I just want to know what kind of pizza that was.
Pizza, yeah. Entitled parent complains about paying for babysitting. Okay, so I just remembered this glorious story from my time as a coach at my local sports club. Once a year, we would have a giant sleepover in our gym. Imagine 40 to 50 kids with 1 or 2 adult coaches and a couple coaches who are teenagers. I was one of the latter, as I was 16 at the time. They would all come on a Saturday at around 11 a.m., and we would have all kinds of fun sports and other activities with them inside the gym as well as outside. We would do some barbecue for the dinner and provide breakfast on Sunday morning as well. At around 11 a.m. on Sunday, the parents would pick them up. None of the coaches were getting paid, but we loved to do it for free. The whole thing would cost the parents €4. With that money, we would get bread, cereal, milk, butter, jam, and other stuff for the breakfast, as well as some drinks like water and juice and the stuff for the barbecue. Additionally, we would ask the parents to provide some salad, cake, muffins, or anything else for lunch, afternoon snack, or dinner. We had a lot of parents who complained about preparing food after they had already paid €4. A lot of times, we had to remind people that we are babysitting their kids for a whole day for free. But this Karen took the cake. When she dropped her kid off on Saturday, I asked her for the €4 because she hadn't paid them yet. Karen,
I don't have any money right now. I will give it to you tomorrow.
While holding her wallet in her hand. Me, looking straight at her wallet. You're really trying to tell me that there's not even €1 in that wallet? Karen, trying to hide her wallet behind her back.
No, there isn't.
Me, either you pay now at least €1 or you're going to take your kid home. I am not playing that game. I am not going to pay for his food out of my own pocket. Karen, angrily.
I am already paying for this sports club membership.
€11 per month, by the way.
So that should be enough. Be careful how you talk to me, young lady. I am paying you right now.
Me, excuse me? What? I'm not getting paid for this weekend. I'm volunteering here right now because I like working with the kids. Karen.
Well then, why do you want my money if you like working with them? Where is the problem if you are volunteering?
Me. Someone has to pay for all the food he's going to eat, and that is not going to be me. And let me guess, you also didn't provide any salad, did you? Karen.
You already want money from me. Why should I additionally prepare food for this?
Because you only paid €4. One of the adult coaches hears what's going on and comes over. Coach. Karen, pay up. I have had enough of your yelling. Your payments for the membership are always late, and now you try to argue about €4? I know your family and know that you have €4 to pay. As far as I remember, your husband works a pretty nice management position, doesn't he? Karen gets red in the face, I guess out of embarrassment.
Whatever.
She opens her wallet and throws 4 €1 coins at me. She then stomps off. Her son, by the way, just stood there and looked very embarrassed. He's a great kid and doesn't deserve this mom. Gladly, we also had some really great parents who were so grateful that we would take care of their kids for free. We often got some extra gifts from them, like a pack of energy drinks. We often had to stay up all night, some candy, or even got offered money. Karen thinks no one wears the diner's uniform at night. Background. I'm a regular on a national chain of 24-hour diner, known for their breakfast dishes and having the cook station out in the open. Given the odd schedule that I keep, it's one of the few places in town to grab some good food late at night. So I've gotten to know the staff fairly well, and they know me. I also have several friends who have been waitstaff and know how simple things like stacking your plates once you're done is sometimes appreciated as much as a good tip. So I try and do this if there is time. On to the story. So I pull into the diner around 1 a.m. and can see that all of the tables are loaded with dirty dishes. So I walk in and see one of the day shift staff starting the cleanup process. Me. Hey, how long have you been here? You look dead on your feet. Worker. Oh, hey, since just before lunch. Jones is sick and I got stuck covering his shift. Me. That sucks. What happened here? Worker. Just had a frat stop by and they left about 5 minutes ago. I need to head in the back and check on something with the cook, i.e. smoke break. You okay for a few minutes? Me. No problem, I'm in no rush. So really having nothing to do and no place to sit, I decided to help and start stacking dishes and moving them from on top of the table to the counter next to where the dish sink is located. While trying to be a Boy Scout, I got a couple of the tables at least cleared. A car pulls up and out pours not 1, not 2, but 4 Karens have now been unleashed on this poor unsuspecting diner. So there I was with dishes in hand in the process of moving them from a table to the counter. Not how I wanted my night to go. I much prefer the Karen-free nights, not 4 of them at once. So deep breath, and I hope that these are some of those rare nice Karens who have more than 1 brain cell shared between them. The door opens and Karen 1 to me.
Table for 4, now.
Me, politely. Seat yourselves. The server is in the back working on an issue and will be out shortly. Karen 3.
This table is filthy. Get over here and finish cleaning it.
Karen 2 stumbles out from the restroom area.
There is no toilet paper in the bathroom. Go get some.
Karen 4.
Coffee!
Boys and girls, can you guess my next line? I'm glad that you could. Me. Ladies, I'm sorry, but I don't. Karen 4.
BS. We all saw you with those dishes. Don't lie.
Karen 1.
Now get off your butt and do your job.
Me. I was trying to be helpful and give the waitstaff a hand. She's been running almost nonstop for over 12 hours. And what about me says I work here? Do you see a uniform or a name badge on me? Karen 3.
Everyone knows you guys never wear your uniform at night. So get to work and make us some food.
At this point, worker comes in and has a slight smile on her face from the dishes clumped together on the counter. And then her eyes glance over and sees the Karens and her face just drops. Worker to me. I forgot to grab your drink. Sorry about that. Long shift. Me. No problem, but it's going to be longer still. Just deal with them and I'll order after them. It's not worth the headache right now. So worker 1 grabs a dish rag and walks over to their table and apologizes for their wait and asks what they would like to drink while wiping down the table. The Karens then begin their litany of how dare she serve her coworker first and that I was lazy and not doing my job, going to complain to the manager, etc., etc. Now, during their tirade, who should come in? Not the shift manager, nor the store manager or city manager, but the district manager. He lives about 10 minutes down the road, so he pops in frequently. Me. Yo, boss man, how is it going tonight? Manager. Hey, about the same as usual. Karen 1 shouting.
Are you the manager here?
Manager. Yes, I do manage.
You need to fire that lazy employee there.
Pointing at me.
He was rude and was saying mean things at us, and he's out of uniform.
District manager looks at me. I look back and take a deep breath. Me. They just got done from being slammed. Worker 1 is pulling a double, so I decided to help her out by bussing the dishes to the counter. While I was doing that, they came in and assumed I worked here, and this has been the most reasonable I've seen them so far. Yes, I managed to get my full explanation spoken without interruptions. District manager to Karen 1. Ma'am, he does not work here. He's a rag. Who do you think Jesus would approve of? Someone helping those in need? Or a Jezebel who goes out drinking and making a jerk of herself? Also, it is company policy for everyone from waitstaff to senior management to be in uniform when we are working. So please finish your order, eat, and be on your way, and do not harass the other patrons. The Karen table is dead silent and staring at each other. They order and finish up their food before slinking out of the door and drive off. District manager to me. I go to the same church as Karen 1, Karen 2, and Karen 4. They always act like Bertha better than you, so it was nice to take that Karen 1 down a peg. Worker. I can't believe it. They didn't even bother to leave a tip. All those surprised, please raise your hands. Thank you for letting me ramble, and remember to be nice to your servers. Speaking of tips, how much do you tip when you go out to eat? Please let us know.
I don't.
Am I the jerk for blowing up at my girlfriend after her friend's daughter painted my gaming keyboard? Yesterday, my girlfriend's friend came over to our place with her 4-year-old. She comes over a lot to hang out with my girlfriend and usually brings her kid. When they came over, I left to run some errands and because I don't like third-wheeling my girlfriend's hangouts in my own house. I get back after a couple hours, and when I come inside, the friend and kid are gone and my girlfriend is apologetic and shows me my gaming keyboard. It was covered in nail polish. I think the cheap kitty kind with a lot of glitter. The keys had been almost completely painted over. My girlfriend had tried to remove it, but it was a lost cause. Apparently, girlfriend's friend's daughter had wandered off when my girlfriend and her friend were talking and went into our spare room / my game room and had painted the keys. There was paint on my desk too. Not gonna lie, I was furious. I'd bought this keyboard only 2 months ago. It's over $150, mechanical, with multicolored backlights. I ended up yelling at her about not watching the kid and letting her do so much damage. Then I asked what was gonna be done about it. My girlfriend said the kid had been punished, but I told her I didn't give a darn if she was put in timeout. I wanted to know if and when her friend was gonna buy me a new keyboard. My girlfriend said she didn't know if her friend could shell out that much in such short notice, but she'd pay me back when she could, and that she didn't like how angry I was being and how I was being disrespectful towards her friend. I again said I don't give a darn. I don't want either of them near my house until she reimburses me for the damage, because that's unacceptable in my book. Apparently, that was too much, and my girlfriend said I was being a jerk, and it's not that big of a deal right now. It's just a keyboard, and I don't use it that much anyways. I got even more upset, because it felt like she wasn't taking my hobby or finances seriously. We have barely spoken since, and she wants me to apologize for yelling now, even though I think me being a little mad is justified. Edit. I've seen this point come up a lot. Yes, I took the caps off to look at the damage. The kid didn't neatly paint on each key individually. There's globs of polish and paint all over the thing. Multiple colors, like it had been poured out or finger painted on. I don't know why she had polish in the first place. Didn't ask. Some of the paint ran into the cracks between the keys. My girlfriend got some off. I got a little as well, but a lot of acetone will damage it, even worse than the polish. Even the parts we got off are still sort of discolored, like you can tell something was spilled. The keyboard can still type, but it's a lot uglier and some of the keys stick. It's pretty hard to use it for gaming now. Anyways, I've had time to cool down and to realize I've been a jerk, and both me and her could have handled this a lot better. We talked some. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but there were apologies all around. Us arguing almost never happens, but tensions have been high lately. I still don't want her friend over until she apologizes to me herself, and I'm kind of against the kid coming around when I'm not here. Anyways, thanks for the space to talk about my problems, Reddit. What would you do in this situation? Would you expect the kid's mom to pay for your new keyboard? Or would you just forget about it? Please let us know.
Why not just sell the keyboard on Etsy now that it's custom designed?
And this is my 2-week notice. I worked at a local golf course for about 7 years, from when I was 13 to 20. When I had first started there, my mother was the manager of all things food and beverage until that summer because she took on a different job. Working there for so long put me in line to be the new manager. However, I was not willing to take the position because I was enrolled in college and wouldn't have had the time for it. And considering my mother worked 100-hour weeks sometimes in our busy season, I wasn't willing. So they brought in Addie to replace my mother as food and beverage manager, and I was another regular employee. The golf course also had a general manager who we will call Chad. Chad sucks. He was creepy towards all the girls who worked there and had a terrible temper, one similar to a toddler. We never saw eye to eye on anything, especially his management style, and he was always getting on my case even though I was the only person on the food and beverage side of things that knew what was up and how to do anything, including Addie. So this brings us to the story. I was working in our little restaurant serving our golf leagues that come in. One league in particular liked to stay really late, like 12 a.m. to 1 a.m., but I never really minded as I got along well with them and I became good friends with a lot of the members. After they were always buying beer/shots, so there was never much of an issue with it. When Addie started there, Chad decided to change up our dining room policies to close the restaurant at 10:30 p.m. This personally really aggravated me. They were paying customers, and I was happy to serve them, and I was the only one that was usually serving them. But Chad kept going on about labor costs, which if anyone reading this knows anything about serving, I wasn't making much hourly and was relying on tips to make money. So they put this into place, and I tell Chad it's his responsibility to tell the league they have to leave at 10:30 and not me. He didn't, and guess what? The league members were mad. First mistake. Addie would not often, or honestly never, stay to help with the league, but was adamant about the new hours. As she's about to head out for the day, she tells me that I will be training 2 girls in the restaurant that night. We have about 80 extremely needy golfers in the restaurant at once on this night in particular. I barely had time to train one, but she did not stay to help out with that. Looking back on it, it was definitely not my responsibility to train anyone either, but I was willing to help out as she was still getting adjusted to the job, and she knew that and took advantage of that. Second mistake. Then mentions to me that if I am not clocked out by 10:50 p.m., then I will not be paid for any work after the fact. Third mistake. I ended up training one of the girls on our POS computer and told her she was done for the day and that she can clock out, and continued to train the other girl for the rest of the evening. So when the league left at 10:30, there was food on the floor, bathrooms weren't cleaned, trash was not taken out, the tables were moved from their normal resting places, and the drawer wasn't counted. I told the girl I was training to move the tables, and I counted the drawer. Well, it's 10:50 now, and I'm not working for free, so we clocked out and left. Could I have done more? Absolutely, but I needed to prove a point. The next morning, I had many missed calls from Chad and Addie. I didn't have to come in for 2 days, so I just let them keep calling. So on the next shift day I had, I finally called Chad back. He told me to come in for a meeting with him and Addie. When I get there, He gives me a story about how he had to come in and clean everything up with Addie, and why would I ever do something like that? I told him that Addie not only had me training 2 people on our busiest night of the week alone, but I also had to be out at 10:50 or I was told I wasn't being paid. After going back and forth about how Addie was just kidding and I shouldn't take things so seriously, I had finally had enough of Chad and his antics. I told them I was putting in my 2 weeks, and the looks on their faces were ridiculous. It was awesome. I continued to work for the next 2 weeks, doing everything I was supposed to and training Addie on any little detail I could think of before I left. After my 2 weeks were up, I ended up getting calls from Addie and Chad all the time because nothing was going right. I was asked again by Chad to take Addie's position, and Addie was calling me telling me how impossible Chad is to work with. It was truly beautiful to watch all the chaos unfold even after I left. Addie ended up quitting a month after because her and Chad couldn't get along. I don't miss much about that job or place, but I do miss my regulars every day. If any of y'all are reading this, I hope you're doing well. I've given you my money, now do your job. Sir, you're not our customer. I work for one of the largest Scandinavian airlines at the check-in desks. I encounter some of humanity's worst on a daily basis, but this one in particular stood out to me. It started when I noticed that my coworker at the desk next to me was being berated by this older man. There were no passengers waiting to be checked in at the time, so I ended up listening in on the conversation. In a strangely calm tone, this man was letting out a steady stream of accusations mixed in with total nonsense. Man, I will be contacting all the newspapers to let them know about how you are scamming people out of their money. This is your responsibility to fix, so you will have to fix it. Coworker, I'm very sorry. However, due to this ticket, I gave you my money. So are you going to fix this? This conversation kept looping pretty much exactly like this over and over, without my coworker ever getting enough time to explain the problem to the passenger without being cut off. I quietly asked coworker if he needs me to call for a supervisor, but to my surprise, he responded that everything was going great with a grin on his face. With me butting in into the conversation, it finally created enough room for my coworker to finally explain to the passenger what the problem was. Coworker, sir, you are traveling with R Air, established Irish low-budget airline. We work for S Air. What do you want us to do? Without hesitation, the older man continues to tell coworker off. It is S Air that got my money, so it's your people who are going to fix my ticket. Coworker, there's nothing we can do with this ticket, as it's for a different airline that we have no affiliation with. If you want our help, you will have to visit our ticket office. He points in the direction of the ticket office. Man, I've already given you my money. Why would I give you even more? At this point, it's been over 20 minutes of this, and both me and coworker are starting to get fed up by this man's antics, and I walk around the corner to stand next to the man. I gesture towards the ticket office, and as politely yet forcibly as I possibly could, I shut down the conversation by telling him that there is nothing we can do for him at the check-in counter and that he will have to go to the ticket office for help. He grumpily starts walking towards the office while continuously telling us how bad at our job we are. And that was the end of it. Or so I thought. About an hour passes by, and I've switched over to helping people out with the self-check-in machines. I'm having a conversation with my supervisor about nothing of any importance when suddenly the man returns. He immediately makes a beeline to my supervisor and starts his rambling again, with the only addition from the previous ramble being him telling her how we had apparently managed to talk to the boss. He made air quotes as he said this, about something. He started to become illegible at this point, but he pretty much regurgitated the conversation we had earlier. My supervisor immediately realizes what kind of situation it was and pretty much ended up ignoring him, helping another passenger who was an actual customer of ours, leaving him to continue complaining to the only other worker there, me. Man, this is nothing personal towards you, but... And the previous beratements continues on, loop again, with another addition that airlines should not be allowed to sell tickets through mobile apps, and that he is going to contact politicians about it to change the rules, and that he is going to speak to the president of the S Air, so that he, the president of S Air, can talk to the president of R Air, so that he, the president of R Air, had to speak to his employees about how to treat their customers. Again, Everyone he's spoken to up until this point works for S-Air. Turns out, this man had bought a ticket with R-Air through a travel agency without checking which airport the departure was from. The airport I work at does not have any R-Air departures or arrivals at all. This man was at the wrong airport, demanding us to check him in at a different airline, refusing to believe us when we told him he's not our customer. In the end, he ended up just leaving. The funny thing is, he was only going to Copenhagen, which there are many very easy ways to get to. He ended up spending almost 2 hours at the wrong airport telling us to do someone else's job. Even if he had just bought another plane ticket or gotten on a much cheaper train, he would have been well on his way by then. Karen demands I buy her a $200,000 car. I'm 30 and my girlfriend is 25. She wrecked and totaled her car last week. No injuries, thankfully. She is a notoriously bad driver. She's been driving since she was 16, and this is the third time that she's totaled. Found at fault for all three, and been involved with multiple other minor accidents. A couple of days ago, we left to take her to the dealership so that she can get another car, and directs me to drive her to the Porsche dealership as she's scheduled to test drive a brand new 2021 Porsche convertible. What? That's an obvious joke, right? She tells me she's dead serious. She just totaled an older model Kia Rio. Why the sudden upgrade to a $200,000 car? I don't even drive a car that nice. An argument ensued from there. I ask how she's planning on paying for that. She's a waitress at a very high-end restaurant with big clientele, so she's paid well, but business has been slow the last few months due to everything going on. She says, obviously with my job, we'd be able to afford it no problem. While it's true that it wouldn't break the bank, I told her that I might as well light the money on fire with the way she drives. I suggested she get a used, non-luxury brand, and that if she can go a few years without an accident, maybe then get a luxury car. A little more back and forth, and neither of us feel like getting a car anymore, so we go back home. It's now been 3 days since the argument, and she's been sleeping in the spare bedroom and barely talking to me. The friends we have in our group chat are split, and some believe I'm the jerk, and some believe she is. So Reddit, what's your verdict? Well, what do you think? Should he go ahead and buy her the car or not? Please let us know.
Of course he should, unless he doesn't love her.
Karen doesn't believe I'm brain damaged and partially blind. This happened a while ago in the good old days before the world turned to poop. I'm a 29-year-old incomplete quadriplegic with a severe acquired brain injury. My spinal cord injury is obvious as I'm in a wheelchair, but my brain injury isn't obvious to most people, as I can communicate normally in most situations. I have damage to the temporal lobe and the optic nerve in my brain, which has affected my sight, and the damage to the temporal lobe affects general thought processes, but I can easily manage doing day-to-day tasks. The outside half of my right eye is blind, and I have double vision from my lazy eye, which gets worse when I'm stressed. But when I'm stressed or have too much audio and physical stimulation, my brain switches off, making it hard for me to communicate and harder for me to see. This doesn't happen very often, but when I'm stressed or I have a bad migraine, which I get often, my vision gets extremely blurred and I find it hard to see anything in front of me. Now on with this story. One day when I was out shopping, I came across a Karen in the wild. I heard someone far behind me muttering something I couldn't make out, which was followed by an "Excuse me." There was enough room beside me for a trolley to get past me, and she sounded far enough away that I didn't think she was talking to me, so I continued what I was doing. A minute later, I heard her say again, "Excuse me," but this time louder and closer. So I turned to ask her if she needed anything. Karen: "About time. I've been trying to get your attention for the past 5 minutes. Me: "You were trying to get my attention from the back of my head? Last time I checked, my eyes aren't there." I use sarcasm as a way to calm myself, but saying that to a Karen wasn't the best idea. Karen: "Don't you get smart with me. I was waving my hand to your side and you were ignoring me." Me: "Oh, I'm half blind in one eye. If you were waving at me on that side, I couldn't see you." "You're not blind. What are you on about? I wanted to get past you, but you were ignoring me." Me: "There's enough room for you to get past. Is there something wrong with your legs?" I said the last part slightly patronizingly. Karen: "How dare you speak to me like that? Now get out of my way." Her tone and her aggressive-sounding voice caught me off guard, and I knew I needed to get away from her before my brain did its annoying switch-off thing. Me, timely: "Ma'am?" Karen: "Seriously, what's your issue? Are you all that stupid?" Me: I have a brain injury, and
Like heck you do. Now get out of my way.
And then it happened. My eyesight started to blur, and I could hear a slight ringing in my head. I couldn't speak, and I was trying to move my wheelchair, but my hands were shaking. Karen had gotten some attention from other customers and a staff member. Someone came up beside me and put their hand on my shoulder, which made me flinch, and asked me if I was all right, but I couldn't get any words out. Karen.
She wouldn't get out of my way, and then she got weird.
Staff.
There's enough room for you to get past. Now leave before I call security.
Karen.
Yeah, whatever, lady. Have fun with the cripple.
As she left the store. The staff member managed to calm me down enough for me to get out. Brain damage, which she seemed to understand. She stayed with me until I was able to get the words out and explain what happened and why I couldn't get the words out. Staff. That's not a problem. My name is Sharon. If you ever see that woman again, you find a staff member and we'll handle it, okay? What she said was not right. I thanked her and left the store to go home. I was a little too riled up to continue my shopping. After this happened, I learned a few ways to de-escalate the situation by pretending I don't speak English and saying something random in a different language, or coming straight out with a, "How about you go forget yourself instead?" and the nicest and happiest voice I can get out. That one usually stops people and sometimes gets a laugh out of them. The moral of this story, don't be a Karen, I guess. Entitled mom drops her spawn off at a daycare he's not even registered at. Backstory. From about 2018 to 2019, I worked at an after-school program with a church that also functioned as a private school. I worked mostly with the after-school kids, ranging in ages from 5 to 12. I mostly worked with the older kids, who were about 10 to 14. This school also had a daycare/nursery. I hardly interacted with the daycare, but sometimes I would have to sub for a teacher who was running late or couldn't come in. This story was one of those rare times I had to sub for a teacher in the daycare and just a combination of everything going wrong. I also guessed this would be an r/I don't work here ladies story too. When working at the after-school program, it was a part-time gig since I was only there from about 1 in the afternoon until the last closing time, which was 6. It was nice since I could sleep in and do my schoolwork. It was a great setup, and 90% of the kids and parents were great. Hardly any of them were entitled, and not gonna lie, I miss my kids a lot. But very rarely, I would get called into work to sub for a teacher in the daycare. Now a quick note here is that the daycare was run by the church. The after-school program was run by the school. They were separate entities, but sometimes the daycare would call teachers from the after-school to sub for the daycare sometimes. It was never a problem since the daycare workers were really nice, showed us how to handle toddlers and babies. Anyway, I said yeah, I would watch this class of 4-year-olds while their teacher was at a doctor's appointment. No biggie, it shouldn't be more than an hour. Like at most daycares and my after-school program, you have to register your kid if you want them to attend daycare or the after-school program, and that way their name can be added to the roll. Also, every time you come to pick up or drop off your kid, you have to sign them in and out. The same applies to visitors. So I go in, sign in the sub list, go to the classroom, and do a quick roll call. I have a total of 8 kids. Cool beans. 2 hours go by. Their teacher is still a no-show, and I'm doing my best teaching their Bible lesson. 9:30, the kids are in their stations playing, taking a break from their reading lesson. The door opens, and the devil and her spawn come in. Like I said earlier, I have no clue who these kids are, but I do have my role. The devil, Karen, walks in, ushers in Spawn. Karen comes in after her son, before I even had a chance to speak to him and ask his name. Karen turns to me and says,
Are you the teacher?
Me. No, I'm Miss Mary. I'm just subbing for Miss Lily, the regular teacher.
Fine. When is she going to be back?
Me. Hopefully in a little while. I don't normally work here. I work in the after-school program. I was wondering, is your son new? I don't see his name on the roll. Karen.
Oh, yes. We registered yesterday.
Me, a little wary. Oh, okay. I'm sure he'll get added to the roll in the coming week. Karen.
Okay. We'll be back around 8 to pick him up.
I stop as she leaves for the door. Me. Ma'am, you can't leave your son here after 6. It's a state law. 80% sure this is true. Karen.
Okay, fine.
And Karen drew out fine like I just asked her to take out the garbage. As she walks out the door, Spawn is playing with the kids and getting along just fine. But part of me was just wary, like something didn't settle right with me. I grabbed the walkie-talkie and radioed the supervisor asking if Miss Lily's class was expecting a new kid. She said no. Thankfully, I had messaged her just as Karen was walking out the door. The supervisor said to bring Spawn to the office. He was sad, but I explained we had to see Mama. I took him to the office after asking a teacher to step in while I was gone. When we got about halfway down the hall, I hear,
What do you mean my son can't be here?
Supervisor, your son is not registered with our daycare. We cannot accept him.
But this is a daycare.
I walk in at this point with Spawn in hand, and she points to me.
Well, she let my son in the room.
Supervisor, I know, but she is a sub, and she has to go by the roll. Your son was not on the roll, nor is he enrolled here. I'm sorry, Miss Karen, but you and your son have to leave. Spawn is upset at this point because he was getting along with some of the kids, but Karen being Karen had just started back up.
This is a daycare. You have a no discrimination policy. You have to accept my son.
Supervisor, ma'am, you are right. We have a no discrimination policy, but you have to schedule a tour and an interview if you want to enroll your kid here. This does not mean it's a walk-in daycare. Please just leave. I'm just standing there with Spawn holding my hand. She snatches Spawn from my hand and swears,
This will not be the last time you hear from me.
The supervisor tells me to go back to the classroom and not to worry, that I made a good call about the mom. The rest of the day goes by smoothly. I go to my real job without a worry. The next day, the supervisor emailed me with an update about Karen, pretty much saying, Hey Mary, just wanted to let you know that you did a good job yesterday handling that lady. And yes, she did call the director of the daycare trying to get us in trouble for discriminating against her because guess what? She's Italian. I mean, of all things, but I digress. The director said don't worry about anything and that you are more than welcome to sub here more often. The kids love you. Have a good rest of your day. I don't officially know what happened to Karen, but I do know from the email the director told her to shove off. Would you watch Karen's kids if she tried to force you to do it? Please let us know.
You're lucky if you get to watch my angels.
Am I the jerk for overreacting when my mom tried to endanger my health? The incident that really upset me happened a month or so ago. I, 16, female, had been getting really dry skin around my eyes and kind of looked like a panda as the area was red. I told my parents about it and they asked me not to wear any eye makeup for a week or so to see if something was irritating it, as it wasn't painful. Sure, makes sense. A few days after, I asked my mom if she had any heavier moisturizer I could use, as I know she uses some. She told me my dad had got moisturizer from the doctor for eczema on his leg, and that it wasn't prescription, just something you could pick up at the shops if you knew what you were looking for. I agreed to try it, so she passed me a box. It had a prescription label on it. Immediately I was confused, so again asked her what it was, but she just told me to stop being dramatic and just to use it. I opened the box and it does look just like a tube of moisturizer, but I read the little slip that comes with it. Do not use near or on the eyes. Can cause cataracts. I refused, saying it wasn't for the eyes. I was again told I was being dramatic, and my mom asked my sister for her opinion and she agreed with my mom. I just refused and went downstairs, saying labels are there for a reason, etc. I told my dad about it when I went downstairs. Turns out that tube wasn't moisturizer. It was steroid cream. So pretty awful to put on your eyes. He was pretty shocked, to say the least. My mom still refuses to admit she did anything wrong at all, saying I was being ungrateful as it would have worked just fine, and making a big deal out of nothing. I'm so confused because I thought that would be kind of a big deal. Am I the jerk for reacting this way? Would you have put on the cream if Karen had told you to? Or not? Please let us know.
Shut up and put on the cream.
How I got my boss fired when he tried to fire me. Starting out, let me explain why there wasn't a mass walkout and why I am the only one that quit despite us basically being terrorized at work. The job market was in shambles in my city at that time, with something like a 40% unemployment rate. I knew someone with a doctorate degree in theoretical physics working at a local fast food joint, as it was literally the only place hiring. The city had quick access to 4 research universities, but he got downsized due to lower admission rates. He is now the dean of the physics department at his former school. To quit any job, no matter how bad, was not smart, and a guarantee that you would not find a new one. I always worked customer service, food service, and hospitality since I was 14. At 24, I decided it was time to find a job with benefits and potential for career advancement, so I took a job stocking shelves overnight with a global monstrosity that started out as a mom-and-pop store. I felt right at home. I worked hard and constantly took the worst jobs and the worst days off to make sure I would be there on the weakest staffing days to rub elbows with management. If there was anything that occasionally came up that no one on the shift was trained to do, I would come in on my day off, without pay, to get trained how to do the task, like keys, paint, accounting issues, etc., to become less disposable and more versatile. It worked, and 10 months in, I found myself with an offer to promote to low-level management starting January 1st. Starting the weekend before Thanksgiving, the overnight manager started to understaff shifts to preserve his end-of-year bonus and acted surprised when people called out. He would then bully us into staying over with threats of write-ups for not finishing our assigned stocking tasks. Upper management was notorious for just signing off on write-ups without looking into their validity, so each staff being assigned 13 plus hours of labor to complete alone in 6 hours, while typically it was approximately 4.5 hours to account for tending to customers as well, was no defense. Since an employee could only get 2 of those write-ups in a rolling 13-month period before termination, we all would stay over, as well as skip our breaks and lunches to finish. Those write-ups were also less job-threatening, as he would simply turn a blind eye to us clocking out for break/lunch and returning to work. But there was a catch. Since any approved overtime would count against his $73,000 bonus, approximately 11 cents per approved hour, he would never file the approval forms for the overtime. This meant that it was considered unapproved, meaning that we were required to get approval to cut hours off our regular shifts to equal out what we stayed for. He, of course, never approved us to cut these hours. This was resulting in weekly write-ups from the same manager for unapproved overtime on those of us that made it to work every day despite the weather and missed holiday get-togethers with our families. Every week we would get our write-up and he would get praise for getting everything done with less approved staffing hours than typically allocated. Thankfully, write-ups for unapproved overtime didn't carry a lot of weight, but for 3 months they counted against your points for promotion opportunities. This went on until a week before Christmas. When I got my weekly write-up, I was told by the store manager, who offered me my position, I would be suspended for overtime abuse the next time my manager submitted a write-up for unapproved overtime hours. Determined to not lose my promotion, I started telling the manager no. The second time I refused to stay over without him signing an overtime approval form and giving me a physical signed copy before I hit overtime, he wrote me up for abusive actions towards a member of management and actions with intent to undermine the integrity of management and store policies. This instantly cost me my promotion, which greatly upset me. And then, like the idiot he is, he left me alone in his office to sign the write-ups and the acknowledgement that I was no longer promoting. Initially, I was going to just accept it and resolve myself to spending the next 13 months working my tail off for minimum wage and go up for promotion as soon as they fell off. When I started reading the acknowledgement form, I found I was not eligible to promote to management until I was write-up free for 5 years. This meant 6 years and 1 month before I could even try to get promoted again, all because I followed policy. So rather than sign it, I wrote "Buzz Off" in Sharpie across his brand new desk, which he got for being such a great manager, walked out of his office, handed him my vest and name tag, shredded the write-ups, and tossed them into the air like confetti, and told his no longer smug face that it was now my personal mission to get him fired. He lost his attitude when it sunk in I just quit. I could see little beads of panic sweat forming on his forehead as he realized that the only person capable of performing certain highly essential functions for his shift was walking out the door. He shouted after me, telling me that he could talk to the general manager and see if he could get the time frame cut down to 3 years. He offered to approve all of my overtime the rest of the season, offered me a cut of his bonus, and several other offers I can't remember. Honestly, if he had offered to withdraw the write-ups, which was still 100% an option but he never offered, I would have accepted it, but I might not have followed through on my threat. I was too angry and too determined, and I didn't care if I became homeless as long as I never had to work there again. Now, how did I get him fired? Well, due to certain ADA requirements, I was permitted to carry a voice recorder with me at work so I could record important meetings, announcements, and reminders. When I got written up the first time for unapproved overtime, I started recording his requests to both me and coworkers. I never used them to dispute the write-ups, but I never deleted them either. So I uploaded all the recordings to my computer, nearly 18 hours of audio, and sent it to the home office, CCing every store manager and compliance officer in the district. When I went in for my last paycheck, he was long gone. I was offered my promotion back, but I declined. The regional director then offered me my old manager's job with a $73,000 hiring bonus. Wonder where that came from. But I still refused and said I was never returning to retail. My former manager's boss laughed and told me that everyone returns eventually, and when I did come see her, she would find me a management spot somewhere. After 5 months of being unemployed, living with my mom, and barely surviving, I moved to another state and got a job working in a state prison as a guard, and am very fulfilled. Have you ever had a boss you couldn't stand? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I've never had a boss because I've never had a job.
Leave everything you have to our kids. I'm 39, successful, and quite well off. My siblings, sadly, are not. My brother, 42, has 3 kids. My sister, who's 35, also has 3, with 1 on the way. My youngest sister, who's 28, is married and pregnant, but she had nothing to do with the events of this post. We were all raised to believe that money doesn't matter and all you need is a happy marriage and lots of kids to live a happy life. Being poor and having a lot of kids was somehow glorified, maybe because that's the way our parents lived and wanted to convince themselves that they didn't mess up. Fortunately for me, I didn't buy into that nonsense. I always knew that I never wanted kids. I focused on my career and achieving success. Today, I have my own house, wonderful pets, and a loving boyfriend. My family, however, seems to think that there's something wrong with my lifestyle. My parents have often commented that my 5-bedroom house is empty without any kids running around. My siblings often tell me that I'm selfish for not having kids and actually enjoying my life. However, their disdain for my selfish lifestyle doesn't stop them from begging for money. My brother and sister have called me and asked me to help pay their bills. Now, if it's something serious, like clothes or school supplies for their kids, I'm willing to pitch in, but I always refuse when I'm asked to pay for trips to amusement parks, etc. I also paid for my parents to stay in a high-end assisted living facility. They're my parents. I felt like I owed them this much. I have moved them to a less luxurious facility because of something horrible they did. I'll make a post about that too if you're interested. However, I couldn't help but feel insulted when they sang praises for my siblings for breeding and following in their footsteps, and how my parents wish I had done the same. As if, among all their kids, I'm the biggest disappointment. For this reason, I've distanced myself from them. I only call or visit to check up on them and don't let them be a part of my life. The other day, I got a call from my sister asking if she, her husband, my brother, and his wife could all come over. I said okay. They asked me to leave my fortune to their kids in equal portions, and if I did, they would stop asking me for financial help. They said this as if they were doing me a favor.
You don't have kids, so who are you gonna leave it to?
Asked my brother. I told them I was going to leave my money to charities and that I don't owe them crap. When they went on the "you're selfish" tirade, I told them to get lost. The next morning, I got a call from my dad telling me they were disappointed in me. I simply hung up. The one family member who has stood by me is my youngest sister. She actually has her crap together, and I could not be more proud of her. Edit. Here's what my parents did to deserve the downgrade. After the altercation with my siblings, my parents tried a different strategy. They tried to sweet talk me, and suddenly their tune had changed from "you're so selfish" to "aw, we didn't mean it, let's talk." So after they kept pestering me to have a word with them in person, I invited them over. Now, my parents know darn well that chocolate is bad for dogs, but my mom has tried to give them some on many occasions. When I tell her off, she always comes back with, "But maybe they like it," and "I was just being nice." This time when they came over, I left them in the living room and went to the kitchen to get some refreshments. While I was there, one of my dogs came over to greet them. I could see them from the kitchen. My mom petted him for a while, then reached into her purse and pulled out a bar of chocolate. She broke off a piece and was about to give it to him when I stormed over and knocked it out of her hands. My parents looked shocked. I was enraged. Even after being told repeatedly that chocolate is bad for dogs, they just don't get it. When I asked my mom what the heck she was doing, my dad actually started yelling at me and told me I was being rude. I told them either they were complete idiots or they were intentionally trying to hurt my dog. I told them I was sick of their BS and that they were on very thin ice with me. When they tried to argue back, I grabbed my dad by the arm and walked him out of the door. My mom followed. This was less than a month ago, and a few days ago, they were moved to a much less cushy facility. They won't be mistreated. I would never allow that to happen. But all they'll have are nutritious meals, medical care, and a television they'll have to share with the others. The nice, fully furnished mini apartment they had earlier with all kinds of luxuries will soon be a distant memory. If you built a fortune of your own, who would you leave it to when you pass on? Please let us know.
How about my kids?
Am I the jerk for cutting my daughter off because she went over on her utility bill? I'm 48, female, and my daughter is 25 and a recent single mom of 2 toddlers. Her late husband, 24 at the time of his passing, was trying to start a business and left her with a lot of debt that he didn't tell her about. I admit that he probably expected sunnier days financially speaking soon, but at the same time, I never liked the boy. I felt like he was too soft at everything he did. My daughter is left with a lot of debt. They were sending their kid to a private special needs school, and she begs that I cover the tuition for that, along with the utilities/gas for her apartment. At that moment, I become shaky on my confidence in my daughter's decisions, so I make her a deal that she forwards me the utility bill for the next 3 months and that she cannot go over $200 a month. First 2 months go by okay, but this month, I see that her bill comes out to about $215. She explicitly broke her side of the deal, so I told her that I will not be financially supporting her or her kids and that she needs to either secure more shifts at her hotel housekeeping job or attempt to get a loan. She starts calling me cold-hearted and says that it was because her son was on the computer doing learning games, and now her son will have to be put in a public school where special education is weak. However, we had a deal, and I remind her that she could have continued working instead of hitching her horse to somebody who is barely making ends meet for their family. Am I the jerk? My husband, who's 57, and my daughter's father both cut contact with her after she got married for a lot of complicated reasons and says he supports my decision. He says he raised her to be self-sufficient and strong, and it's embarrassing to see her beg for money. Whose side would you be on? The moms or the daughters? Please let us know. I think that Karen needs a smoothie. So you need a certified copy of my bachelor degree that you just issued? No problemo. During my last semester of my bachelor degree, I already applied for the master's degree at the same university. So I go through the normal application process and get accepted. But as I didn't have my bachelor degree at this point, I had to produce a certified copy of my degree as soon as I could. Yes, I had to give a certified copy of my bachelor's degree to the university who issued that degree in the first place. And no, these were not different departments. It was all done by one lady in the examination office. But whatever, weird bureaucracy is weird. And boy, was it annoying at that university, because all students of my faculty had to go through one lady. And I think she just hated to do anything. Like seriously, she was so annoyed when you showed up at her office to just do anything. When I turned in my bachelor thesis, she straight up said that she is so annoyed that all the students turn their thesis in at her office. Well, we don't have another choice. There is seriously no other way to turn your thesis in, and don't ever think about asking her for anything. So I'm already looking forward to picking up my bachelor's degree. No, we don't have a fancy celebration. Normally you would get an email when your degree is ready, but as she hates our guts, you just have to guess when it's ready. We don't get an email. 2 weeks after your last grade is put in the system, it's probably ready. So I did just that. I show up at her office, and hooray, my degree is ready. Lady, here, without even looking at me. Me, thank you. I need a certified copy of that. Lady, really annoyed. Excuse me? What? Me, I need a certified copy. Could you please copy it and certify that it is a copy of the original? I know what a certified copy is. You can get that at Town Hall. Me, I know, but I can also get it here. I know for a fact that you have to give me one if I request it. 5-second staring contest ensues. Lady, ugh, fine. She takes my degree back, turns around, copies it, and signs that it is a certified copy. Lady hands me the degree and the copy. Here. Me, thank you. Now I would like to give you a certified copy of my bachelor degree for my application for the master's degree. I hand her back the certified copy. Are you serious? Me, yes. I thought if I'm already here, I could turn that in as well, so I don't have to come back again. Another 5-second staring contest. Lady just takes the copy out of my hand and turns around. And with that, I left with the biggest grin on my face. What did she expect? That I go to the town hall, 15-minute ride, wait there for probably 1 to 2 hours, get a certified copy that would cost me 13 euros? At uni, one was for free. And then come back another day? Heck no. Especially because she had the weirdest office hours ever. It was something like 2 days a week, for 1.5 hours in the morning on one day and 1.5 hours in the afternoon. So I probably would have waited days to turn that in. But her face when I asked for a certified copy was just glorious. Edit. Okay, this blew up way more than I thought. I'm so glad to hear that I'm not the only one experiencing it. And yes, this happened in Germany, but I can't tell a university without maybe getting in trouble. Also, thank you for the gold, stranger. Entitled girlfriend wanted something shiny for her birthday. This was 15 years ago. Back then, I was dating a girl who turned out to be much more than she let on at first. I had been dating this girl for 5 months and things were going great. We hung out a lot, and I got to say I really enjoyed her company. She wasn't just a girlfriend, she was someone I really liked chilling with. Her birthday was coming up, and I really wanted to do something awesome for her. She had told me a couple of times how much she wanted to go to a hockey game at the Bell Center to see a Montreal Canadiens game. I figured this was the best opportunity to see that she finally gets to go. After asking around, I was able to get tickets to see the Montreal Canadiens play against the visiting Pittsburgh Penguins. At that time, 2 of their most famous players were on the team, so not only would she get to see a Canadiens game, she would also get to see 2 of the most famous players at the time live. The day of her birthday comes, so we go out for dinner. After dessert, I hand her an envelope with a thoughtful greeting card I knew she would like, along with the game tickets. She rips the envelope open, not even reading the greeting card, holds up the hockey tickets, and disappointedly asks, "What's this?" I then explained to her how she's always wanted to go see a hockey game and how the Pittsburgh Penguins would be the visiting team and how I got some really good seats a few rows up behind the players' bench, how I spared no expense. She was not impressed in the slightest. "I appreciate the thought, but this is the kind of gift I would expect to get any other day. This is my birthday. I expected something shiny." I paused for a moment because I honestly thought she was trolling me or just wanted to make me sweat for a second. But no, she was dead serious. She shoved the tickets into her purse and then told me that she would give me a chance to make it up to her. You're probably thinking that she was right to be disappointed because hey, hockey tickets, right? Well, truth be told, in Montreal, a night at a Canadiens hockey game is by no means a cheap date. The tickets themselves went for $350 for the pair. Montreal loves its hockey team, and tickets are hard to come by. This drives up the price. Not to mention, these were great seats. The cost of parking is astronomical. Not to mention the cost of anything from the concessions is a pure rip. I kid you not. 4 hot dogs, 2 fries, and 2 Cokes goes for like $50 Canadian. So adding it all up, it's a very expensive night of about $450 to $500. From then, the relationship took a hard left turn. Her attitude changed. She wasn't the same person anymore. I was truly turned away by her lack of appreciation of the gift, and truly, I started giving less and less of a crap. I broke it off with her, and I was upset that it was over. Up until the birthday fiasco, things were amazing, and I truly believed she would be the one. 2 weeks go by, I get a call from her mother. It seems that she liked me from the couple of times she and I met. She seemed to be genuinely concerned about how things went bad between her daughter and I, so we talked for a bit. This is how I got to understand where my ex-girlfriend's sense of entitlement came from. She asked me if I was doing okay. I replied honestly that I was upset and hurt that things turned bad and how I was happy until things changed. I expressed my disappointment at her reaction towards the gift. She asked whether I would go back with her if things would be as they were in the beginning, to which I said yes. "If you want her back, you need to show how much you love her. Get her a ring. She will take you back if you do that." I felt as if I had suddenly sobered up from a night of partying. Instant clarity. I conjured up all my willpower to keep myself from telling her to forget herself and to take her daughter with her. I simply replied with, "Thank you for wanting to help me with this. I have a lot to think about. I will surely be speaking to you soon." I ended the call. It took me a few days to let all that anger boil away. Karen got our car towed on our property. I'm pretty upset because this happened just a few hours ago. Anyway, to set the stage as players, we've got me, my neighbor, who from here on will be referred to as Nosy Old Bat, and yes, she's an entitled boomer. Her husband, nice neighbor, my brother, mentioned rather than involved, and my grandmother. For some backstory, neighbor and I both live on corner houses next to a busy street, which is relevant to the story. And oh man, is this lady bordering on r/insane people level of crazy and nosy because oh my god, she's nuts. I've lived in this house my entire life with my grandmother. I'm 28, and where I live, it's hard to live on your own, especially with everything going on right now and being temporarily out of work because finding work that's disabled accommodating is a pain, especially when you have asthma and it makes people paranoid. I get it, but it's tiring trying to explain that no, I'm not sick. I have asthma and I can't get anyone else sick with my bad lungs. And neighbor used to watch me for a little bit when I was 6 until my aunt could pick me up to babysit me. This apparently has given her the mindset that she can attempt to control my life and tattle on me to my grandmother, who nowadays knows when I have company, and if a friend parks in the driveway, I call or text her to let her know and ask her to let me know when she'll be home so I can tell my friend they need to move their car unless grandma tells me that it's fine and she'll park on the side of the street, which she does occasionally, even if there's no one in the driveway. A non-issue, right? Not to neighbor. She's been known to get up in my business, to go and knock on my door, and demand to know who's there, and if I'm doing the nasty with those friends. It's hilarious to me when people ask if I'm sleeping around, but it's infuriating when neighbor asks this because she's nosy as heck and thinks she practically owns the neighborhood due to the aforementioned corner houses and acts as if this is an HOA. It's not, and she's in charge, as should we be because of our house on the other corner. She makes calls on other people's behalves constantly. We're no different. Anyway, dressing the stage aside, the story of the title. Alright, so my little brother is a Marine and is currently deployed in Hawaii, and his car has been on our property for a while now because, well, he can't come home and drive it since he's in Hawaii. This apparently gives her the idea to call a tow truck because it hasn't been moved since he left it. It's not even a terrible looking car either, but I guess it upsets her that it was sitting there due to it being a car she didn't know. My grandmother's now dead truck has been there longer, but neighbor knows whose it is because she's seen her drive it. This happened between the time my grandmother and I left for Costco and the time we got home. Neighbor called the towing company to tow my brother's car because, in her batty old boomer logic, after my grandmother went over to her house to confront her, it's been there for over 2 weeks and it's just sitting there on our property, not hurting anything. Her husband, nice neighbor, as jerky as he can be, was unaware his wife did this because he likely wasn't home, so he had said that he wasn't sure when he talked to us. So now my grandmother has to call the police and the towing company to get the car back, and she is rightfully furious, as am I, as at this time it means another towing fee that was completely unnecessary. She can't even get it until tomorrow because nothing is even open. She was met with voicemails of the towing company not even being open either, which was bizarre before 7 p.m., but whatever. I don't know the towing hours since we haven't had to deal with them before. I absolutely hate neighbor with a seething and unholy passion because this isn't the first time she's attempted this garbage either. She's done this on other neighbors because she thinks she can police the neighborhood because of her corner house logic. I do not care how rude this makes me, but I will not be paying that towing fee, and I will not be letting my grandmother pay it. Neighbor will be paying that because it was none of her business to be nosing her old face into things. I don't care if you're old. You do not stick your nose in someone else's business and life, especially if the thing in question is on someone else's property. I will take this woman to court if she refuses to pay for this because she had no right to do this. I mean, what was my brother supposed to do? Be all like, oh, hey guys, it's been 2 weeks. Let me go back to my grandmother's and drive my car around the block. I'll be back on Monday with all the flights. Yeah, as if his CO would allow for that just because of neighbor. I'll give updates if anything further happens because, yeah, I'm furious and don't really care if the old woman doesn't want to pay it. She will, or face court for her nosiness. Update. My cranky and tired butt marched over to her house. She was awake and outside, and ripped a new one into her about keeping her nose in her own business and to pay for the towing or I was going to take it higher up and nail her for illegally having it towed. She's paying for the tow truck, reluctantly. I haven't slept. Thanks, insomnia, you're a pal. So I have no hoots to give about being cordial or polite with this BS. Entitled people need to mind their own dang business and leave people alone. What would you do if Karen had your car towed off of your property? Would you force her to pay for it or would you pay yourself? Please let us know. She did nothing wrong. Am I the jerk for leaving a repairman a bad review for flirting with my wife? The air conditioner broke last week while I was out of town, and my wife had to call an emergency technician in the middle of the night. A company we'd used before without issues sent a guy over. He fixed the air conditioner no problem, but once he had left, I woke up to a million missed texts and calls from my wife, who was hysterical. Apparently, within minutes of showing up, he made comments about her body and other inappropriate statements. She made it clear she wasn't interested without being outright rude because she didn't want him to get mad and leave without fixing the air conditioner. The tech kept trying to put moves on her. Then after he'd fixed the AC, he didn't leave right away, trying to feed her some lines about how she seemed to be home alone and he could spend the night to make sure she was safe. Eventually, he realized he was driving down a dead end and left, But the whole thing just really freaked her out, having some guy in the house who didn't leave when asked and everything. I was upset to hear about all this, and she was shaken up by the incident. So we left a review on their Google and Yelp pages saying what had happened. The company is pretty small, so the owner called me to apologize a couple days later and said the tech had had a few drinks that night, not expecting to be called out to an emergency job, and that his sense of humor had clearly been misinterpreted by my wife. He asked me to take my review down because it called the tech out by his first name, and apparently a review saying he was coming on to a female customer could cause some personal problems for the guy. The owner also reasoned that the business was an air conditioner repair business, not a bedside manner business, and that they did fix the air conditioner, so deserved a higher rating. I told them our review stands, and they basically said that we were jerks for threatening the reputation of their business and the personal reputation of the tech over a single misunderstanding. On the one hand, they did fix the air conditioner, and that's what we called them to do. On the other hand, I feel like this is relevant information for people considering hiring them, even if it was a one-time thing. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Should OP leave up that review telling exactly what happened? Or should he take it down like the business is asking him to? Please let us know.
Not only should he leave those reviews up, he should also share them with his friends on Facebook so they can make it go viral. I honestly hope that company goes down the drain.
My entitled mother parks in the disabled parking and gets a fine she refuses to pay. My mother is a mega Karen, and I have 16 years of stories to tell about her entitlement. Here is yet another one. This happened in 2004 when I was 14. We had just moved from Australia to New Zealand. The town had a population of around 12,000 people, which was a big step up from the town we moved from, about 2,000 people. It seemed like my mom's entitlement got worse by having an extra 10,000 people for her to annoy. Within a month, my sister and I had settled into our new schools, and Mother Dearest found her preferred, cheapest grocery store to shop at. I should mention that my mom is not disabled, but did that stop her from parking in the disabled parking spot? Nope. The first month went fine, until my mother got lazy. Whenever we went to the grocery store, she would always complain, while walking towards the entrance, that there was never anyone parked in the disabled parking spot, and she would say things like, "I don't see why I'm not allowed to park there," and "There's nobody in this dang town that needs it anyway." This last comment was total BS on her part, as there was a quadriplegic who lived in the town which she knew about. And regardless, these spaces are for disabled people, not her. Then one day, me and my sister were in the car while Mom was driving to the grocery store. We usually parked close to the front door, but to the side where there were usually a few spare parking spots. I was expecting her to stop there, but she didn't. Instead, she drove all the way to the front and parked in the disabled parking spot. Me: "Mom, this is disabled parking. You can't park here." Mom: "Of course I can. The spot is vacant." Me: "It's illegal for you to park here. You'll get a fine." Mom: "No, I won't. I have the right to park here if there's no disabled person parked here. I don't see any disabled person. Do you?" Me: "Whatever, Mom, but you're going to get a fine." I get out of the car and walked across the street to the park. I didn't want to be seen with my mom, but I wanted to keep an eye out for the parking officer or police person who I knew would come. Even in a small town, the police were very diligent about rule breakers, and sure enough, 10 minutes later, I saw a policeman walk up to the car, check the license and lack of a disabled sticker, and write a ticket that he placed on her windscreen. I sent Mother Dearest a text that I'd meet her at the petrol station when she was done. I didn't want to be seen getting into her car, but I made sure to hang around so I could see her reaction when she saw the fine. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, I saw my mom come out of the store, see the ticket, and she flipped out. She started cursing and stomping her feet on the ground like a kid that lost their toy. Only in this case, it was a fine of $80. I chuckled to myself as I walked to the petrol station a few blocks over. I got there a few minutes before my mom did, and I could see the anger on her face as she got out of the car, slammed it, and started filling up her tank. Me, faking concern. "What's wrong, Mom?" Mom: "You shut your mouth." I smiled and got into the car. When we got home, my mom got straight on the phone to debate the parking fine. I overheard the call. Mom: Yeah, I got a fine for parking in an empty parking spot. There was nobody else parked there. But I had to park there because I have a bad leg and can't walk that far." "What?" "No, I don't have a sticker, but that doesn't matter." "No, hold on, what? But no, disabled." "Oh no, you stupid, I'm not paying this fine." And she hung up. A month later, I had assumed she paid the fine, but obviously not. She got a letter in the mail regarding an unpaid fine, which was now $100 due to relayed payment. Mom went to the courthouse and paid it, but I didn't hear the end of it for 3 months after that, as she'd complain about it any chance she got, making out like she was the victim. I wish I could say that she learned her lesson, but she didn't. She parked there a few more times and, shock, horror, got more fines. A Karen never learns. Edit. Just to clarify, I am disabled now, but wasn't back then. My injury happened in 2007 when I was 17. I've written the full story on here in case you want to know more. Have you ever parked somewhere that you weren't supposed to? If so, did you get a fine? Please let us know. Plenty of times. I just never pay them. I'm so sorry I got in the way of you embezzling the McMoney. I worked at 2 McRestaurants. I'm not going to reveal which McRestaurants these may be, but you may work it out. The first was in my hometown before uni for 6 months. The second was in my uni's town for 18 months. The 2 McRestaurants had different IT systems. One had an online system, the other just had paper. And so I couldn't simply be transferred. I had to resign from one, get fast-tracked through application at the other, and the people who McTrained me had an easy few shifts. Lead up to being told what to comply to. Now, the first McRestaurant was very strict, but a bit too easygoing. I had good customer service, so was put on the tills every shift. I could combat every Karen with enough sarcasm and fake boomer humor to make them like me. When working on tills, the managers gave the till users their swipe cards so we could issue refunds quicker or delete an incorrect item on the order when the customer changes their minds 10 times. All is good. Each shift I walk in, count the McMoney, do my job, cash the McMoney, go home. I was almost always perfect to the penny. Until one shift, I noticed a coworker using my till during my break. When I cashed the McMoney that shift, I'm down by like a $5 and a few pence, and I'm given a cash retrainer, disciplinary, and basically a pop quiz about cash handling. After doing so, I mention the other coworker to a manager, and he tells me it's my fault for not constantly supervising my till and for not locking my till during my break, which I didn't know I could do. He happily shows me. Cool and good. He's nice and even shows me the legal writing that says I cannot leave the till from counting to cashing until the till is locked. I can comply with that. The night I am finally forced to use this knowledge. A year later, new store, new managers, same legal stuff. I offer to take a coworker's shift so I can afford to eat next week and end up on a shift with a manager who has never asked me to go on till before, which is weird. I'm great with customers and despise cooking McFood. This time though, she was expecting the other worker but had already gotten the McMoney ready. I take it from her, count it, sign it off, and do my job. I start learning that she is working everyone hard while she picks her nails and checks her phone. After a while, she notices that we haven't had any orders for a little while and that I'm just stood watching her procrastinate. Stop standing around and do your job. I am? We have no customers, so I can't serve anyone. She tells me to get stock for the kitchen. What? I thought you wanted me to do my job. Yes, do your job. By the book, McManager? Yes. Okay, no problem. I will stay by this till like it says in the book. Duh. I continue to stand there and she gets irate. Look, McManager, the only way I will leave this till is to go on my break. She rolls her eyes and leaves me alone. Yay! About an hour getting paid to chat with the customers and coworkers who are nearby the till. Eventually, I'm asked to go on my break, so I lock the till as per usual and do so. A coworker of mine, someone who used a flexible till next to mine while I was on break, a flexible till is signed off by a manager, said that while I was on my break, she came to the till, got angry tapping the screen for it to do nothing, and stormed off. When I came back from my break, I asked for her manager card. No, it's for managers only, and you're just a till boy today. Wow, okay. Is this an extended break? What? No, go do your job. I'll be able to if you give me your manager card so I can unlock your till and do my job. To be honest, you can supervise since it's your card. Again, she rolls her eyes, goes to the till with me, holds out her manager card, and I have to swipe it while she was still holding it because she wouldn't let go. The screen becomes responsive again and I unlock it. She seems to avoid me for the rest of the shift while I just chill since it wasn't too busy. I have time for a proper laugh with some customers, and I even have a drunken friend come in for a milkshake. She and I chat for a while and talk about the weird McManager. End of my shift. The McManager is suddenly very nice and sweet, offers to take my McMoney and count it up for me, and I can go home early. Haha, no. I'm paid to the minute and want to cover my own butt, so I count it myself. Not quite perfect, 3 pence over. I probably just didn't give a few people their penny change when they walked away. But for a cash retrainer, it has to be plus or minus £1. I'm chill. It was satisfying to irritate her so much while I took the role of procrastinating away from her for that shift. I was grinning on my way home that I had done everything as I should have and put a manager in her place. I even got a drunk friend buddy to walk home with. Turns out there was more to it. That was the most profitable Thursday evening in months. That evening was hundreds of quid more profitable. A little investigation had been carried out because of this. They then noticed it was the first Thursday evening in months to not have a perfect to the penny cash amount. They then noticed that it was me who signed it off, not the normal person. Then they noticed that the signature of the other person didn't match with her signature on other shifts. Far too much for it to be a coincidence. CCTV showed McManager to be taking the Tills McMoney into the office on the usual workers' break every shift. I got in the way of it this time for just doing as told and doing my job by the book. Fired, of course. Fined, of course. Think she spent a small amount of time in prison, but now I see her cleaning the floor in the Colonel's Chicken restaurant across the street. Also, I probably would have trusted her to look after the till while I got stuck if she hadn't been so rude. Speaking of McDonald's, what's your absolute favorite item from McDonald's? Please let us know. Oh, don't make me choose like that. Are we the jerks for all moving out and leaving our roommate with the lease agreement he can't afford because he moved his girlfriend in? So my roommate, Jake, rented this apartment with 2 other people. One of them backed out immediately before signing anything, and the other, Jeff, didn't want to sign anything as he needed to be able to move out on a quick note. Jake agreed with Jeff. The condition was that he'd send him his share every month and Jeff would arrange 2 more roomies ASAP. Well, that's when me and Pete come in. We know Jeff from high school. We needed a place to stay for college, and Jeff asked us to live here on the same conditions as he did. Anyways, everything was split 4 ways, usual stuff. Prior to everything going on right now, Jake suddenly had his girlfriend over all the time. But no one brought it up, as it wasn't uncommon to have your girlfriend over for a few days. We all do it. But when she was here for a full week, made a load of messes, made our utility bill way higher, and literally never left the apartment, we talked to Jake, who informed us that she was staying for a few weeks because she lost her place and her job. We were all pretty upset, pointed out he should discuss crap like that beforehand and how she could at the bare minimum pick up after herself. He simply replied it was his name on the lease so he could do whatever. However, he had talked to her about cleaning up after herself. Obviously, we were upset, but then all heck broke loose in the world and we were stuck with her. It just kept getting worse. More messes, water bill through the roof, kitchen trashed, other people's food disappearing, etc. Despite multiple attempts to speak to them, demanding she pay her share for the rent and utilities, etc., it always ended with, "It's my name on the lease." Long story short, we found a new place for the 3 of us, sent our last month's rent with a notice we were moving out since he is entitled to a 30-day notice lease, and packed our crap, which includes 90% of furniture, kitchen utensils, etc., and moved out into our new place. Cue endless messages from Jake stating he can't afford it alone, and how he'll go broke and he doesn't know anyone who wants to move in, and begging us to come back, even crying on the phone. So we all replied with, "It's your name on the lease, bro, right?" Now we want to know whether or not we are the jerks, since we all feel like we kind of are, regardless of his behavior. Well, what do you think? Are they the jerks, or is Jake the jerk? Please let us know.
Well, it is his name on the lease, bro.
Entitled parent enters my store and demands the police be his lawyers instead of taking his kid to the hospital. So this happened about 6 years ago while I was working at a retail store next to a restaurant that I have no idea how it managed to stay in business. It was notorious for serving expired/rotten food with no flips given about it. One day I was at the counter when a man charges in with his family in tow. His wife is carrying an infant in one hand and holding the hand of their other kid in the other hand, who looked to be about 5 years old and was quite upset. Man,
The restaurant next door made my daughter sick. She started projectile vomiting because of the food. I want to sue them.
me. Oh no. Do you need 911? We can call for you. I look over and the poor kid was crying, understandably, and was clutching her mom's hand. Man,
No, I want the police.
not sure why he wanted the police or if he wanted a lawyer, and also not sure why he had to come into the store when he should be taking his kid home or to the hospital. This guy seemed to have terrible priorities. Now the daughter just wanted to be comforted by her dad, who was too busy on the phone. She just wanted to be cuddled by people she loved. But no, this guy had to call the police to sue. I saw her try to go up to him, but he kind of shooed her off, and then the mom took her hand again. My heart sank for her. I just wanted to take care of her since her parents were clearly not. So he called the police, and this is what I heard. Man,
Yeah, I want to speak to someone about this restaurant. They served my kid rotten food and it's made her sick. No, I don't want 911. Well, I want to sue them. Yes, I did mean to call you. What are you going to do about it? Ah,
it was clear the police ended the call on him. Fuming, the man took his family and left. Never found out about what happened, but the restaurant is still there. I think the girl ended up being okay since I didn't hear anything about it in the local news. I sure wouldn't be surprised if she became a regular on the Insane Parents subreddit. Edit. To clarify, the man didn't want 911. He wanted and called the non-emergency police phone number. He could have dialed 911, and I think he should have, because then he could have yelled his concerns all day at the police while making sure his kid was okay. But no, he was just dumb and a terrible father. No refunds, no exchange. It's store policy. Today, my mom, who's 60, and I, 26, female, went off to this hardware store in Canada that not only sells hardware goods, but also automobile goods, garden things, small home appliances, and kitchen stuff, like pots and pans. My mom needed to return a defective pan she bought almost 90 days ago. I told my mom that we might not be able to get a full refund, but let's go to the customer service section to ask what our options were. So off we went. She went straight to the customer service area, and she seemed like she was going to be all right. So I told her I would browse around the store. 10 to 15 minutes had passed, and she hasn't called or texted saying she was done, so I got concerned and went back to the customer service area. When I got there, I could see my mom visibly upset and that a customer service employee was shaking her head and dismissing my mom. We'll call that customer service employee Hannah, early to mid-20s. My mom saw me and started walking towards me and just told me that Hannah was being very rude, condescending, and overall disrespectful to her. I asked her what happened, and the conversation went as follows. Mom: Hi, I would like to return or exchange this pan since there is a scratch here when I opened it, since I was going to use it this one time. Hannah: No refunds or returns on opened items. It is store policy. Mom: Well, I wouldn't know if the product would be defective if I didn't open the packaging. Hannah rolls her eyes, widens her eyes to talk to my mom as if she were talking to a little kid that doesn't understand English. No returns or refunds. Mom: Well, this is clearly a defective product. I was going to use it, but noticed the defect. Hannah: But you have opened it, and it is not unopened and cannot be returned or refunded as per store policy. Mom: But I haven't used it once. Hannah, eyes getting wide again and talking down to my mom as if she were scolding her like a kid. No refunds on open packages. Do you just want to speak to my manager? Mom: Yes, please. Manager: Hi, we can do an exchange for you since it is still in resaleable condition. Hannah: But it has to be of equal or lesser value, or else I am going to charge you for the difference. With her eyes all wide and crap. As per store policy. Mom: Okay, I will go look for another pan. At this point, she's finished telling me what had happened, and I am livid for someone talking to my mom like this. So we were now browsing for another pan that was of equal or lesser value. I took a look at the receipt and mentioned to my mom that since she bought the pan on sale for $39.99, originally $139, she needed to find one of equal or lesser value. We saw the same pan, but it wasn't on super sale anymore, since it was now $59.99. My mom said that it was fine, she'll pay the $20 difference since she really likes the pan. I urged her to look for something of equal or lesser value since this crap store doesn't deserve my mother's money. So while she was looking, I noticed that the original pan she likes has written in bold size 1000 font lifetime warranty on the packaging. So I reviewed the back of the receipt to look at the store policy. Store policy is the following: unopened items with a receipt and original packaging and returned within 90 days of purchase will receive a refund to the original method of payment or will receive an exchange. Items that are opened, damaged, and or not in resaleable condition may not be eligible for a refund or exchange. Exceptions include returns, exchanges, or warranties on an item without a receipt may not be accepted. A defective item is subject to the manufacturer's warranty and will be repaired or replaced. And lo and behold, exceptions include a defective item is subject to the manufacturer's warranty and will be repaired or replaced. I explained to my mom that she doesn't need to pay the $20 difference and she can just get it replaced, as per store policy. She was super hesitant and wasn't sure it was going to work and insisted she will just find a pan worth $39.99. I said, "Mama, I love you and I'ma wreck this jerk today." My mom laughed and she sent me to talk to Hannah. Hannah makes eye contact with me and the pan and doesn't say, "Next in line." Me. Just walks up since she was just staring at me. "Hi, were you helping my mom earlier about the pan?" Hannah rolls her eyes. "Uh-huh." Me. "From my understanding, she wanted a refund, right?" Hannah. Yeah." Me. "Okay, cool. So I talked to her, and we just want to get a replacement pan then. No need for a full refund." Hannah. "Okay, where's the pan?" Me. "We don't have it. My mom left it here with you." Hannah looks around. "Well, it's not here. I can't do the transaction without the pan, so you have the pan?" Me. "I can assure you, and if you would like to review the CCTVs, we do not have the pan." Hannah then gets angry and yells for her coworker to look for the pan, in front of multiple customers. After 5 minutes, they found the stupid defective pan. Hannah. "Okay, but she bought this for $39.99, and it is now $59.99, so I will charge you $20 difference plus tax." Me. "Oh, well, since this pan has a lifetime warranty, and that your store policy clearly states that a defective item is subject to the manufacturer's warranty and will be replaced or repaired, I would just like to get it replaced since repairing this pan is nearly impossible." Hannah, shocked Pikachu face. But. Me, "As per store policy." Finn with our new pan. Am I the jerk for not giving my pregnant friend my old baby items after I found out she's selling them? I, female 32, just had my third and final kid. He's 5 months old now. I have loads of baby things from my older kids and also some things I bought brand new. My friend, Tina, who's 37, is currently pregnant with her first. I offered her all my unused baby items along with everything my babies grow out of by the time she's due in December. She likes to shop in secondhand stores, so my baby items certainly weren't beneath her. Baby stuff is so expensive, and when she offered me money for them, I declined, saying I was happy to help her out and see them go to a good home. The items offered included cots, swings, bouncers, clothes, pumps, and a lot more. Last weekend, I dropped my first lot of stuff over as I didn't want to have clutter in my house till December. I brought over all my 0 to 6 month clothes, some still new in packaging, the pump, one swing, and a baby monitor. The next day, I got a Facebook notification that someone I knew posted items for sale on Marketplace. It was Tina, selling everything I dropped over. I was livid and called her to explain myself. She told me she didn't see the big deal. She was going to sell them and use the money towards brand new items. I saw red, went over to her face, and took everything back. I told her she wouldn't be getting everything else I was going to give her either. The way I see it, I gave her those things to be helpful and would have sold them myself if she hadn't taken them. Why should she profit off of me? Later that day, her boyfriend calls me and screams down the phone about how disgusting I am to do that to Tina while she's pregnant and how crappy of a friend I am. But I'm digging my feet in. I really don't think what I did was a jerk move. If anything, she's the jerk for selling my kindness. So, Reddit friends, am I the jerk? Should I be bringing this stuff back to her? ETA. I would have donated a lot of the clothes and smaller items to our local charity for the homeless and single parents in need of aid, and only sold the bigger items such as the cot. My rage was her taking away from them and making money out of it. ETA 2. When she offered me money for them, she said, "Oh, you're so kind for giving me all of this for baby. It's so hard to baby shop with what's going on. I really should give you something for it." I told her no, and I was just happy to help her out, and she thanked me for making it easier for her. Had she told me that her intent was to sell them, I wouldn't have given her anything and instead offered to buy her something off her baby registry. What do you think? Should she give back all of those items or not? Please let us know.
Why she knocking Tina's hustle though?
Am I the jerk if I keep the money a patient left me? I'm 22, female, and I'm a CNA and I do home care. I used to take care of this man who was in his late 90s. He was super sweet, World War II veteran, and a smart guy. He progressively, obviously, got worse as he aged. His daughters were there a lot to watch him / take care of him, but they got frustrated with him and would yell or storm out. I was pretty much the only person to not yell at him. When he became incontinent, he still would have the urge to go to the bathroom and would try to actually go use the urinal, but his daughters kept telling him to ignore it and just go in his brief instead. It was a mess. I didn't know he had a good amount of money stashed away. The house was small and relatively not well kept. The only real valuable stuff were medals he won from photography contests. I used to take him on drives and help him in a wheelchair, and he would tell me all kinds of stories from whatever places we would go to. He recently passed from natural causes. As he got worse, the daughters became more frustrated with him and his inability to be independent. He couldn't walk much, let alone stand. He would shake and fall back, and he started to become more forgetful. I don't think the daughters didn't love him. I mean, they took care of him, but the last couple of years of his life were kind of miserable. They argued constantly. When he passed, I was allowed to attend the funeral to pay my respects. A while later, I found out he left me a sum of money to help with college, and that he wanted me to go on to do great things like we had talked about. He said I was going to make a great doctor, and there was a pretty emotional letter in it. He left the house to his daughters and some of the money to them, but most of it was left to me, $150,000. The daughters were mad, tried saying I was a horrible person, that I was probably doing him favors I shouldn't have been, and they tried to get me fired ever since by constantly calling my company. My company's HR asked me if I knew anything about this, and I said no. This has been a total mess. They said the right thing to do is to give the money to them. There's 3 daughters, all in their 50s and one in her 60s. I thought about doing it, but quite frankly, I don't want to. They didn't treat him that well, and it's not like he didn't leave them anything. They also are all well off themselves and work nice jobs. He wasn't cognitively impaired, no Alzheimer's or dementia of any kind. The change in his will was made over a year ago before he became more confused and weak. I told my mom, and she said it would be rude to disrespect his wishes, that I took good care of him. We struggled with money for a long time, and she sees this as a gift, so I don't have to worry about debt. She's not asking for any of it. So, am I the jerk if I keep the money?
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard.
Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.